His first test.
Big Bird. I'll be quiet if you're not quiet. So,
When did it go?
you know,
It was, what's his name? Brian.
we gotta go back to set for Thursday.
Check on.
I'm just waiting on the vote to see.
Right?
Call meeting to order. Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. District 1, Councilman Rios.
Here.
District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Here.
District 3, Councilman Leatham.
Present.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilman Gonzalez.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley.
Here.
Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. None can lead us in the invocation, please.
Yes, so tonight I'm going to share a reading and then we'll do a short prayer. This is called Attitude by Charles Swindoll. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on my life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. Will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is that we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. Dear Lord, thank you for this day, and please bless all those people who endure in public service and to help other people have better lives. And thank you for all the people that believe that our best days are ahead of us. Amen.
Amen. Freddie, can you assume the pledge, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
We'll start with summary of current events. Ariana, we'll start with you, Doug.
Mr. Mayor, in a long career in emergency management, this is the month that I call the double whammy because we have had fires and floods in Gila County. So please be aware of your surroundings, check the clouds, check the weather, and please stay away from lighting fires. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Fernando?
I would like to thank John Angulo and Public Works. I didn't have your phone number. I would have called you to thank you personally, but we had a lot of weeds over by the Pinell Cemetery on the one side of this city property, and they were really dry and really bad. So I brought it up to John, and he got his guys out there pretty quick and got it cleaned up. So thank you, appreciate it. And that's it I have.
Thank you. Freddie?
Thank you, Mayor. I have some rather exciting news, at least it is for me, but I hope it is for everybody else. But our Hill Street School housing project, apartment project, is now online and taking applications. So that's, one step closer to that place being opened up. Really excited about this. You can find the information on the website. Just go to www.hillstreetschool.com. The phone number is 928-255-5605. And they also have a physical address on site, and that's at 435 South Hill Street. They're open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you have every opportunity, website, in person, or over the phone. And I was diving into the website earlier today. It's really pretty cool. It's neat. It's just neat to see, and it's really exciting. So it's open for business. So all of you that are interested, get your applications in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Fred. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you back.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Chamber's holding a candidate forum tomorrow, June 26th at 6 p.m. here in the Chambers. And on Thursday, June 27th, the Chamber's holding their annual meeting at the old Globe Cafe at 6 p.m. And they'll be serving appetizers and refreshments for anybody that wants to join. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Jesse. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I only have one thing tonight. As everybody knows, a well-known person, Tom Foster, passed away last week. So I would like to do a moment of silence. Tom was an incredible person and just a guy that knows everything. Every time I talked to him, he just always had information on anything that you had a question on. So he'll be dearly missed. So I'd like to do a moment of silence for him. Thank you, Mayor. That's
Thank
all
you.
I have.
Thank you, Mike. I have a couple of things. First, we do have, I think Phil Stewart's gonna give us a little more information. He's in the audience. They will have a candlelight vigil this Friday. He's gonna explain a little bit his call to the public. Also, they have requested the flags in our city be flown at half staff also. They'll be flying them half in Miami and I think in Superior also, so we will also go along with that request also. So I'm not gonna go into it anymore. I'm gonna let Phil explain a little more about that. 4th of July, the fireworks are still gonna happen with Freeport, and I think it's at 9 p.m. Thought it was pretty late, but I don't know, but I think it's gonna be the 4th of July, which starts really an event that's gonna linger on from the 4th and then into our first Friday and over the weekend. So they're still doing it. And what's gonna happen on First Friday on the 5th is there's gonna be a ceremony here, and I'll be on vacation. Our Vice Mayor Mike Stapleton will be stepping in for me. They'll be reading the proclamation that we're gonna sign tonight, and there'll also be, I don't know exactly what they have, but they'll be honoring retired Army Colonel Larry Perino that day also, and I think it extends into the weekend. There's a long schedule. It's on the website if anybody would like to take a look at that. The last thing I have is I want to congratulate Lisa Fletcher, our assistant to our clerk, for graduating from the Project Central Academy, the Leadership Academy. I think she's the second one in. I think Michelle graduated the last group, and I think we have another individual. I think Vince is putting in for the next one, and it's kind of a neat program. They get to travel all over Washington, Mexico, everywhere. So, but it's a great program to go through to help build your confidence and leadership abilities. So, congratulations to her on completing that. That's all I have, Paul.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, there's still a lot going on, very busy, but I would like to thank both our financial consultants, Pat Walker, Dennis Osich, and Tina Allen, who have gotten us through yet another budget cycle. And we're about to consider the tentative budget, and then we'll have final in 3 weeks. But even more so has been our staff, our directors, managers, and supervisors, and that have all worked with each other and with me and been very patient with me as we went through this process, met kind of sometimes on the fly, sometimes I'm just showing up at their door and saying, let's talk about the budget, and sometimes they're like, where is he? Because I'm hunkered down and want to Zoom with Tina. And so we've done a lot, gone through a lot. It's worked out well. Very proud of this budget. I think it's a conservative budget as it should be, but it keeps our vision and our momentum rolling, even though we're still going through our audits to nail down our fund balances. But no surprises have happened, and we don't expect any in the future. I think you'd be very happy. It's a very solid roadmap to the future. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have our first community call to the public, and this is a time when the public can address the council as a whole. We as a council cannot respond to you during this time. but we can direct our staff if there are some issues that need to be followed up. It is limited to about 3 minutes, so we'll call the first one. I have Phil Stewart. He'll be coming up and just state your name up here, Phil.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, citizens. My name is Phil Stewart, and I'm the President and Director of Bullion Plaza Cultural Center and Museum. And I come here tonight to ask you to please come join us this coming Friday evening at 8 o'clock. We will be holding a candlelight vigil to hopefully start and facilitate the healing process after a very dear and endearing man has been taken from us by the scourge of cancer. And we will begin the ceremony at 8 o'clock on the front steps of Bullion Plaza. And it'll be a brief ceremony. And then after that, we'll go through the museum and end up in the gym directly behind the museum, where it'll be nice, cool, air conditioned. We'll have a light meal and an opportunity for people to share stories of Mr. Foster if they so choose. So, and again, thank you so much for your support and honoring Tom with the lowering of the flag. We definitely appreciate that. And again, please come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Next, I have a card from Carmen Casillas, speaking on behalf of the Cobre Valley Youth Club.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I hope I can do this within 3 minutes, but I just wanted to share the Cobre Valley Youth Club is open again for business. And I thought it was extremely important to come before you for these few minutes and just share the reason that it is open. We talk about it takes a village for our kids. Well, it took the city of Globe to open our building. And I just wanted to give thanks to these people that really joined in and helped us to get going and off our feet within a very short period of time. First of all, Paul Jepson, when I was called by Shelley Salazar to say, come and meet with him, I was like, oh my gosh, no, you know. But thank you, Paul, for starting the ball rolling. Shelley Salazar, John Angulo, wherever John's at, I always have his number, he's always there. Linda Arenero, Melissa Still, Michelle Yurkovich, Lisa Fletcher, Tom, the fire marshal, who would have to show me pictures because I don't understand that lingo. So a lot of time. Also Tony, who took a lot of time with me to make sure that things were done. You don't know how much I appreciate that. Kept coming back and checking. Mary Helen Salazar, who issues the permits, she really worked with us. The City of Globe Public Works, who were always there to pick up after Fernando had spent many hours chopping down the oleanders in the back. So they were there to come and pick up the trash. Also Jody and oh my goodness, she's my neighbor. Jody and
Ginger.
Yes, and Ginger, holy smokes, who were always there to answer my calls. MDC Electric, Jonovich Plumbing, Gila Monster Construction, Azteca Glass, and Jack Aeneas. The reason that I'm mentioning them is because they went in and did the work, but they did a lot of extra for us. So I highly recommend them. They are amazing to work for. Our amazing board, Brian Romney, Dr. Richard Ramos, Regina Ortega, Alexis Rivera, Fernando Shipley. And without our staff, Amber Miller, Arissa, and Annabelle, we couldn't have got a lot of this going. But most of all, I want to recognize our representative, David Cook, who put us on his budget. And because of that, we were able to open. So huge thanks to Representative David Cook. I know he's running again. This isn't political, but I need to give him a big shout out. And most of all to Fernando. You stuck it through. You were there and you stayed with the whole thing. So I know that this club is supposed to be, because we have been knocked down so many times and we keep getting back up with all these people that have faith and trust in us, and most of all the parents who have sent their kids there. So I just wanted to do a quick thank you to let the mayor and council know what an amazing staff that you have and that they are there. So, and thanks to Paul to get the ball rolling. Thank you again, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that I could be on the agenda so I can give an update of what's going on. We have about 25 people or 25 kiddos within about a week and a half that are coming back, so we're growing. So I'm always proud to talk about the club. So thank you very, very much, and thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Carmen.
Paul, you put it on a future agenda.
Yes, we will add that to the future agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other, call to the public online or on?
No, nothing in email, anything on the phone?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Nope, and no one approaching the podium, so I think we're good.
Thank you. So we'll go to special presentation and ceremonial matters. So item 3A is Mayor Cameros will present and proclaim July 5th, 2024 as Larry Perino Day, honoring United States Army retired Colonel Larry Perino for his courage and heroism during the Black Hawk Down operation on behalf of the City of Globe Council. So I'll read the proclamation. This proclamation will also be read on First Friday on the 5th by Vice Mayor Stapleton. And during that ceremony, we will present this to, I think there's some individuals here to take this one, but we'll also have a framed one for Larry on that day on July 5th. So this is honoring Colonel Larry Perino, United States Army, retired. Whereas Colonel Larry Perino, a 2024 Globe High School Hall of Fame inductee, has served his country in distinction and honor, including his involvement in special operations. And whereas Colonel Larry Perino played a crucial role on October 3rd, 1993 during Operation Gothic Serpent in Mogadishu, Somalia. Today it is known as Black Hawk Down. And then First Lieutenant Larry Perino, serving as platoon leader for the 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, conducted a fast rope insertion into the Black Sea district of Mogadishu while under intense fire from automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. Upon notification that an MH-60 helicopter had been shot down several blocks away, he and his element quickly moved to the crash site and helped secure the aircraft until reinforcements arrived the following day. First Lieutenant Perino's courage and heroism reflect great credit upon him and the United States Army. Colonel Perino was awarded the Silver Star, our nation's 3rd highest honor for gallantry and bravery for his actions. Whereas Larry Perino's service exemplifies the highest ideals of the military and serves as an inspiration to all who hear his story. And whereas Larry Perino has continued to support his community and fellow veterans, embodying the spirit of a true hometown hero. Now therefore, I, Al Gameros, Mayor of City Globe, do hereby proclaim July 5th, 2024 as Larry Perino Day in recognition of his selfless service and wavering commitment to duty. In witness of, I have here set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Globe to be affixed on the 25th day of June 2024. So we'll present this to Mr. Tremaine. And if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. I had to see it after I was told about Larry. It's an amazing movie, Black Hawk Down. So I've seen it a couple of times now. So item 3B now presentation of air ambulance membership plans and costs for both residential and employee coverage from Adam Martin, Membership Sales Manager, and Jeff Miller, Director of Membership for Air Medcare Network, Banner Air, and from Kevin Gorski Sr., Membership Manager for PHI Cares. So if you want to come to the podium and just state your name.
And Mr. Mayor, while they're getting positioned, we traditionally have purchased helicopter emergency coverage for the, both our
Thank you, sir.
staff and last year for a certain amount of residents. There's more discussion this year because it's kind of split 50-50 between the two companies represented here tonight. And so we wanted to have a dual presentation of both of the major players in here and some features and costs. I know, Mayor, you have a lot of questions and council may, so we can better make a decision about how we move forward possibly with these amenities. So, Mr. Mayor, I turn it back to you to go ahead and
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Miller. I am the Director of Membership with Banner Air. And tonight with me, I have Adam Martin, our local membership sales manager, and also Amanda Wigman, who is Banner Air's business development with operations. A little bit about us. Banner Air is a hospital-based air medical transport program. We provide critical and life-saving air medical services throughout the entire state. We have 4 bases located in the Valley and Rim Country that provide seamless air ambulance transportation to our communities. Our locations include Payson, Sun City West, Queen Creek, and Casa Grande. Tonight we have for you a proposal for, you're going to hear me say MSP. That's Municipal Site Plan, which you'll probably know as like citywide coverage. The information you have there in the folder on the left-hand side is really the Banner Air overview along with some facts about what we're offering tonight. And on the right-hand side of the folder, you actually have a couple of agreements that we've actually prepared for you so you can see what those agreements are in case you have any questions. Our first option that we want to present from an MSP standpoint to cover the city of Globe would be if your residents were to be transported by Banner Air within Gila County. In essence, what happens with that is insured City of Globe residents are guaranteed 0 out-of-pocket expenses when transported by Banner Air per the terms and conditions of the MSP, regardless of what insurance they have or even if the transport was deemed medically not necessary. Uninsured City of Globe residents would be billed at the Medicare allowable rate. This allows us to keep the MSP costs down while also allowing us to meet exacting financial requirements under applicable Medicare rules. The MSP for Gila County pickup is a total of $27,241. We also have a secondary option should you be interested with adjacent counties of Maricopa, Pinal, and Coconino. If you were to go that route and choose the adjacent county plan, excuse me while I pull this out of here so I'll make sure I get the numbers right for you. The total for that plan would be $31,599. So in essence, with that plan, any city resident of Globe that was flown from one of those counties I just mentioned, Maricopa, Pinal, Coconino, and Gila, transported by Banner Air would have 0 out-of-pocket expenses, and that's a guarantee. With any of our membership programs, we do bill with insurance. But even with the No Surprises Act, patient's responsibility, the NSA does not remove their cost-sharing obligations. So without an air ambulance membership, if you're flown, we will bill insurance. We're not allowed to balance bill because of the NSA, but you yourself as the patient or guarantor would still be responsible for any cost-sharing obligations in the form of co-pays, co-insurances, deductibles. So this citywide plan, the municipal site plan, would remove that from your residents and guarantee them 0 out-of-pocket costs if flown by Banner Air. Lastly, I will say that we also have an opportunity for your employees. And based on the information I've been given, and I know Adam has worked with Pam and Human Resources. I believe, as far as employees of the City of Globe, you currently have 62 non-resident employees that would not be covered under the MSP. So we would offer them a plan to get those 62 as well covered. That would be $4,030 to add that group. And from there, I'll pause and see if you have any questions for us that we could answer.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to clarify, the 62 people who do not live in City of Globe proper, not necessarily don't live in the region.
62 out of how many employees in Globe?
We're we about 135 right now? 139.
50% of our employees.
Wow.
Questions for? The 4,000 additional would cover the 62 non-city residents in Gila County only, though?
No, that's actually, since our standard membership protocol, we don't have a partial membership. They would actually have the full Banner Air membership, would actually those 62 be covered anywhere in the United States.
Anywhere in the United States? Or
In the entire state of Arizona.
entire state?
Flown by Banner Air.
Okay.
And we know the city currently has a PHI Cares membership. We feel like this is an opportunity to either, consider purchasing this as a second option. And we're happy to answer any questions. I brought some of our operational experts with us in case you have questions about that. But we appreciate the opportunity.
Fernando?
So you mentioned that if they don't have, so if they have insurance, then we'll bill the insurance company for whatever the agreement is with the insurance company that they would cover, right?
That's correct. We will bill insurance.
And then if they fall under our plan, then the rest of it would be waived, any other
Yeah, that's
costs?
correct. So their cost sharing obligations in the form of co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles, basically guaranteeing zero out-of-pocket expenses.
And then if they don't have insurance, you're gonna bill them at the Medicare rate, but is that billed to them then?
Yes.
Okay,
Any other uninsured resident that would be flown would be billed at the Medicare allowable rate.
okay. And so this wouldn't, would this help them at all if they did not
Yeah,
have any
it's,
insurance?
yeah, the Medicare allowable rate, even though I don't have an exact number because it fluctuates, but that's highly discounted compared to a normal billing process. So we do that for several reasons. Number one, it's required that we have insurance. So when we fly somebody without insurance, we will bill them at the Medicare allowable rate, but that is highly discounted compared to normal billable charges.
Okay, okay. So there's still a benefit, it's just,
Oh, yes, absolutely.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Given the last year, how many times would you say Banner Air has flown residents from Gila County, from Globe proper?
So since August, it's mostly out of Queen Creek, so our Queen Creek is Banner 3. We have about a 25-minute response time up to the Globe area. I'd say we're doing 5 to 10 a month.
5 to 10.
The last year has been a little bit significant. Most of them have been scene calls. We've done a few out of Cobra Dolly.
Okay, thank you.
5 to 10 a month, okay. Do we know what the total is that's flown? Is that a 40%, 50%, 60% of the flights that come out of Globe?
I don't
You
know
don't-
PHI's number, so I can't really speak to that. I just know what Banner Air has done since we've been live.
Thank you. And you have you said a 25-minute response from
45
Queen
minute
Creek?
response time out of Queen Creek.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say too that I skipped over the fact that we do allow upgrades for your residents as well. So if the city was to purchase this plan for the residents, we would allow them to upgrade to a full Banner Air membership, $45 upgrade, or for our seniors, 60 plus, we offer a full upgrade to $35, and that would in essence give them the full Banner Air membership across the entire state.
What is the initial cost if a resident were to do it on their own without the upgrade?
Yeah, it's $85 is our standard price, $65 for 60 plus. So that's a household membership, covers anybody under one roof for those rates.
So $120 to $150 with the upgrade for both those groups.
Correct.
And this is, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mike.
and this is applicable to just the member, or what about our family members?
Yeah, so under the city plan, if you were to purchase the citywide plan, it would be anybody that is a resident of the city of Globe would have the coverage.
Okay.
So that would cover them completely that way. Now, our traditional household memberships would be anybody that lives under one roof, whether they're family or not, it doesn't matter. As long as they're a household member, they would be covered under that membership. So ideally, what would, sorry, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay, go ahead.
So ideally, what would happen would be that if the city of Globe decided to make this purchase for the citywide membership, we would then go and try to upgrade these households so that they have that full membership, and then anybody they have in that household will be covered anywhere across the state if flown by Banner Air.
Go ahead, Freddie.
Thank you, Mayor. You had mentioned upgrades of two prices, 35 and 40 something. Is that the annual upgrade?
Yes, sir.
That's $45 for the year.
Yeah, correct. So again, if we go through with the MSP, we would then be able to upgrade the residents of the city of Globe. $45 for traditional household, $35 for households with someone 60 or older in the household. That would give them a full membership for an annual price that whole calendar year.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mike.
So, and this is strictly through Banner, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, everything we're speaking of now would be our 4 banner locations: Payson, Sun City West, Queen Creek, Casa Grande. Those are our locations.
Okay, because I spent a lot of time this last summer with Banner. I'm just trying to figure out,
So you're free.
so,
Frequent flyer.
but the question being is, if I got flown down there, would my wife fly along with me, or does she have to go on her own?
So that's truly just case by case. We try to take family members if we can, but it depends on the heat, depends on the weight, and if we're able to take the weight of you and your wife. So it's truly case by case.
Okay.
We are able to take riders.
Go ahead, Freddie.
So, because you have 4 locations, does that designate the flight, whoever the patient is, go to that specific hospital, or they can be flown to any hospital?
They can be flown to any hospital. It's truly, normally it's your sending doctor makes that determination on where the patient goes. But Banner Air flies in and out of all hospitals, not just Banner.
Okay.
And if it's a scene call, we normally work with the local fire departments and EMS to see where they want us to take the patient, or if the family has a preference on where we go. If they have former care to Dignity or Honor Health, then we'll honor that and take them where they need to go.
Thank you.
I guess just to clarify for our residents too, is that if you're at the hospital, you're gonna be flown to the valley and you have a certain insurance, you can request that helicopter. But if you're on an emergency scene, you don't have that, you aren't able to make that decision. It's the closest helicopter to the scene to make it there. And so if it's you and we have PHI insurance, we're not covered.
Yeah, so 100%. So a couple things to consider. Number one, we're a membership product. So both ourselves and PHI, both membership products, not insurance. There's no reciprocal agreements or no reciprocity between the two competing air companies. So yeah, Mr. Mayor, you're exactly correct. On a scene call, obviously their job is to get the quickest aircraft for that scene and provide good patient care. So obviously we're advocates of that. But yeah, correct. Either one. So in a case of what we're facing right now would be the consideration of both companies as an option.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, to our guests, our fire chief, Gary Robinson, says that it's probably about a 50-50 split between you and PHI. Would you agree that it's probably 50-50, that you may get one or the other? Do you think that, or do you think there's a weight one way or the other on the number of flights you're doing versus PHI?
I'd probably agree on 50-50. Like I said, I can't really speak to PHI's numbers, but I do know when PHI is not available in Globe, we are that second call because we are the second closest aircraft to the Globe area.
Okay. I know there's one more helicopter, Native Air. Are they in the equation too, or are they really not have the availability to our location?
I can't speak on behalf of Native Air, but what I will tell you is that Native Air is an Air Methods solution, and Air Methods does not have a membership solution to offer you.
Yeah.
So the answer to that in short will be no.
Do we have a cost, what it is for employees only and for residential? Do we have?
So I'm coming up with basically the number of our employees, 139 times the standard annual rate, $45. and I know we have some seniors over 60 in here, but so I'm coming up with about 6,000 just for internal, or?
Yeah, excuse me, those prices that I gave you, the employee rate is $65. That's a $65 membership for the employees.
All right,
The 45-35 were the upgrade rates.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
So 65?
Yeah, and excuse me, the numbers that I was going off of was a head count of 125. Of those 125, 62 were non-residents.
Okay,
So the 62 non-residents at $65 was $4,030.
so total with the residents and non-resident for city employees only, what number do you come up with? Based on the 125?
Based on the 120, well, again, that depends. So if you do just straight 125 at 65, you're at 8,125.
Okay.
That would give all your city employees the full Banner Air membership across the state.
That's full, okay, that's all across everything.
That's just the city plan without the MSP. Would give them all of that coverage across the entire state, regardless of what pickup county.
Okay, but there's a lower option, you said, and that's where you have to do the math.
Yeah, so in the way I estimate this, in looking from the outside in, is we have two options on the table as far as the MSP and pickup locations. Whichever option you were to choose, we would then offer your non-resident, meaning they wouldn't have any coverage elsewhere because they're not City of Globe residents, correct? So that cost is $4,030, and you would tack that on to the MSP quote, whichever one you picked. If you like the Gila County option only, or if you prefer the Gila County option with Maricopa, Pinal, and Coconino. If you did that option, I have these numbers already. If you go with just the Gila County pickup only, it's $31,271, and that includes your non-resident employees.
31,000
$31,271.
for just city employees?
No, sir.
Oh, okay,
31,271 is your MSP,
Total population.
with your non-resident employees.
okay, so roughly 8,125 for employees only, 31,271 for citywide.
Yeah, citywide pickup in Gila County only. If you included the adjacent counties that we mentioned and you covered the non-resident employees, it's $35,629. That gives you the additional 3 counties for pickup. So that gives you an option because I know people travel a lot, so we wanted to throw that in there as an option for you as well.
So that's a 50% cost because it's a 50% chance that we'd get you.
Yeah, I'm not, and I know Amanda didn't agree to that. I don't know what the exact numbers are. I don't know that. I would leave that to somebody who makes those scene calls. Plus you've got to consider physicians that are hospital based, providing aircraft, et cetera. I don't know if you have somebody that has that.
Our chief might have that.
Yeah, I was going to say, leave it to the experts. Squeeze on it.
Mr. Mayor, council members, in looking at that would be primarily scene calls that we're looking at that. When you're dealing with the interfacility transports between that, we don't really see those numbers. But in dealing with scene calls, the PHI, both carriers are all 3 carriers are fairly busy when it comes to that. So we do see we've seen banner ships on a regular basis over the course of the last year, as well as PHI, so.
So I guess is that number 5 to 10 that you said, are those scene calls or are those interfacility and scene calls?
Our number, they're both. I think we're doing 5 IFTs out of Clover Valley, on a regular basis over the month. And that's what our scene calls we get.
Now, I will say from a hospital standpoint, I'm sure the gentleman from PHI could say this too, if you're a member and you're in the hospital setting, there is an opportunity to let the ordering physician know that you do have a membership. That's still not a guarantee, versus a scene flight. So there is that as well, where they can ask for that particular service if they're available, potentially.
One more question. So if a resident wanted to purchase it, they could do it on their own if we as a city don't, because it's a pretty high cost when we start looking at all of the city residents.
Yeah, absolutely. $85 is our household membership. We offer 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year options, and then $65 a year for anybody 60 and older. So yes, that is an option.
And that's just the Gila County though?
No, that would be a standard, because our memberships generally without citywide coverage are anywhere we have a Banner location, you're phoned by Banner Air. So that's a full Banner Air membership.
Okay, so we could advocate that or advertise that also, that, I mean,
Yes.
$85 is really cheap having to, instead of paying for a full flight,
Yes,
guarantee you.
absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. I think, Mayor, should we go for our, anybody else? Our next.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time. We'll make ourselves available afterwards as well if anybody has any questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
This guy's with PH.
Budget night.
Not a bad deal.
This is gonna be somewhat of a review. Mayor and council members put some, literature together. You voted upon, this will be year 3.
Thank you.
We're still offering the rate $7 per household. I don't wanna get too far ahead of myself, and I have more
Okay.
pamphlets. I will make sure that.
Oh, that's fine. Pam has one, that's the only thing that matters.
Okay.
Okay, so, oh, thank you. Actually, give that to our budget manager.
So on the right of your folder, you'll kind of just see a deck that we put together that kind of shows what you already know, how we operate, different ways, different facts and figures towards the back. Just wanted to have something that everybody could kind of look at. We fly similar aircraft, a lot of under the same standards, so all of that is very good. Our service, we, again, we're gonna keep the rate at $7 per household. That's the residents in Gila County. We do not have an option at this point to add any other counties. That's not to say we couldn't, but at this point we don't. So, the cost in your contract is the one that was signed last year, and I thought it'd be prudent to have that because the price has not changed. Now, Pam did make mention that there was some household numbers that weren't quite the same as hers. It's no problem to work that out. Okay. Right here, we do everything that we can to identify an individual as a member. So this little yellow thing here, we have ID cards that we would send that you probably have seen around town. We would make sure, I think upwards of 3,500 would be sent to the town to be distributed by me and other means, so that we would make sure, literally walk up and down the street, let folks know if the town decided to do it again, that they have the coverage. Because oftentimes we find that different areas we go, some have great knowledge and some have no idea. So we would want to, if you keep this, we would want to do some advertising at our cost to let folks know, hey, this is year number 3, this coverage is in effect, and if you do nothing more, you're covered inside Gila County, okay? And one question I fielded earlier from a gentleman that called was, an older gentleman was confused. He thought, well, most of the hospitals are gonna be somewhere else, and I said, that's no problem. As long as you're flown inside the county, you could be taken to wherever the care is, as long as it's within range of one of our aircraft. So we have stickers that we can put on the house, the car. Sir?
So if the flight originates out of Gila County, is what you're saying, then it's covered regardless if they go to Scottsdale or Tucson, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
But if the flight originates outside of the county, then we don't have any way to help them at this point.
Similarly to what they had mentioned, we do have upgrades, which is this brochure.
Okay.
A person can buy it for up to 10 years for $300, or they can do a year at a time for 30. So, you know, if the town renewed, and maybe not next year, who knows? But your citizens can buy up to 10 years coverage at the $30 rate, which I would definitely, look into. Our standard membership is $65, and that covers you anywhere we offer service. So, you can do 3, 5, and even 10 years at those rates as well. But these that I brought forward are for the MSP or the citywide coverage. So that's available. Of course, we'll have stickers. We'll do whatever it takes to get the information out to your residents. And, to kind of echo what has been said, patient rights do exist when they exist. If my wife or my daughter is hurt on the side of the road, I just want them to get help. It doesn't really matter at that time. And I think most everybody that's human would feel the same. This is just what I would say icing on the cake. One thing that is different from our company is whether or not if you have insurance, of course, we're going to bill it, but we're not going to charge anybody anything out of pocket. So if a person is uninsured, they supported us in our time of need, we take care of them. And we find a lot of times that just the copayment and deductible alone can be pretty solid financial headache. If you're looking at, on a very minute number of $10,000, each time that helicopter leaves the community, those are dollars that are leaving Globe. That could be going to Public Works, that could be going to the local community centers, whatever, to be being spent at the tire store, to put braces on the kids, Vacation, everything but helicopter. Because 9 times out of 10, nobody that has been flown ever thought it would be that day or them. I've come very close multiple times, and sadly it's mostly my own doing, but I wouldn't be without it. It's one of those things that I don't know about you all, but if you drink good coffee or you go through the drive-through a couple of times, you're gonna spend that anyway. So it's just better to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. But that's pretty much what we have. I'd be more than happy. I brought Benny here. He works at our Globe base. That's probably takes just as long to start and pre-check the aircraft as it does to fly. I think it's 10 nautical miles from here. And then we have Deer Valley, help me, sir?
7 minutes away.
And then what other
Then we got
position?
Norvac 4 is about 25 minutes away out of Mount Vista. And we got another aircraft out of Oracle, it's about 30 minutes away.
Which if you can look at it from this point of view, I've spent some time in Alabama. There are counties in Alabama that have 2 ground ambulances in the entire county. You have a multitude of aircraft, so if you had a mass casualty injury situation, you could have a fleet of aircraft rotating people out, and I would say the fire department would probably echo that being true. So it's a great problem to have. In a lot of areas, they're doing good to even see a helicopter, let alone get a ground ambulance. So, you're in a fantastic position as far as air ambulance coverage is concerned. So.
Questions for you, Mike?
Yes, sir.
And you guys fly to all the hospitals in the valley?
We take you to definitive care. So this gentleman here and the flight crew, if they feel you need to go to this hospital, this burn center, this stroke center, then that's where we take you. We're a 100% independent company. So we do what we need to do for the patient. And try to keep it extremely simple. I'm a simple person. We just like simple. Simple's easy. Who else has any questions or concerns?
So when you said $7 a household, that's what you're charging, that's what our contract is right now?
Correct. That's what it has been the last 2 years and what we would extend to you again this year.
So what is the $30? That's the upgrade? So $7 is just Gila County? And do you have a statewide program?
We do.
So that's a 30, okay, I thought you said you did.
Yeah, if the MSP stood and somebody wanted to buy a membership to be covered in our 13 state area, then we would be able to do that for an additional $30, or they could buy it up to 10 years. If they wanted to buy a membership, let's say they're not in the residence or in the county, it's a flat 65. So.
But they don't have to buy the $300, the 10-year to get the $30 cost, right?
No.
They can buy it annually.
No, and it's absolutely in writing right there, so they can choose 1, 3, 5, or 10. Demographics usually dictate how long a person wants to do it. You know, sometimes you get folks that don't even live in the county but half the year, they just go ahead and scoop it up, get it and pay it, forget it. That's an option that they have. Our biggest concern is that folks know if it's renewed, that they have it, and that the opportunity exists to extend the coverage. It's whether or not they choose to do it, of course, is on their shoulders.
Banner said they may do about 5 to 10 a month. Do you guys know how many do a month here in our area?
Out of this area?
Yeah.
Probably 20 to 30.
20 to 30. And those are scene calls or inter-facilities?
Mix, inter-facility, scene calls.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'd gotten a number of about 16 since I think August, and 2 actually internal, is what the numbers that we had collected earlier. So we can't go into much more detail because it gets into HIPAA. But my question would be with $7 a household, what number do you come up with? I think we're 21,000 for the cover. What's that?
23,135.
23,135.
Yes, sir.
That's for all residents?
Yeah.
Yeah, 23,135 would cover everybody in the city throughout Gila County.
And then are you internally for just city staff $50 or $45 a person? We are 50, but.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, okay. And so with 125 employees, I think it comes out to $6,250. So that's where I'm at.
So I've seen air ambulance bills that are 60 grand. And I think a lot of times people have no idea that that's what it costs. And I know that you have contracts with like certain health insurance companies where they negotiate maybe a better price, right? But
As far as I know, and I'll confirm that, we're not in any contracts. We're strictly,
okay,
we're more or less what you would consider to be out of network.
okay,
Which makes that much more, the membership even that much more valuable.
okay. Yeah, because I think a lot of times people are shocked how much it does cost.
Well, and if you ask the general, as I travel about the area, and I've been across most of our area, 90% of our members become members after they've been flown because they didn't know that there was an opportunity. So we want to take a proactive approach and give everybody an opportunity, which is what I spend a lot of time doing, and I've actually been stared at quite weird because I've been walking up and down the streets in 116 degrees talking to folks about membership. But I mean, I've done this for 20 years. I believe in it. The worst case is you spend the money, nobody benefits from it. Fantastic. The other side of that is you have 8 or 9 people benefit from it. There's a whole lot of money staying right here in Globe. Not going to Phoenix, not going to some company, not going to some corporation, but being spent right here.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be devastating. Somebody could go bankrupt with a bill for a flight.
Well, even if you had your copayment and deductible money set aside, I'd much rather spend it on something good, something fun, something frivolous maybe even, I don't know. But I want to keep it in my pocket. Any way I can do that to provide that to happen, I'm gonna do it. That's just me.
Paul, do we have any records of do we know of anybody that's been flown that was under the insurance? Do we have a number maybe?
We really can't speak to that.
Okay.
Pam will throw a shoe at me or something. She's done it before.
And then what our employee copay is for a flight, HMO or PPO?
What? Go ahead. Well, it'd be the remaining copay. Because if they have a copay and a deductible, it would suck up whatever the remaining deductible might. So.
If they're on that line.
Right. But if they didn't have if the employees didn't have it, it would take their copay and all of their deductible. If it happened early, if it happened in July, it could be a lot of money. If it happens in June, they could have met their deductible.
They're on that high.
You know, you probably find the longer that you participate in plans like these.
Yeah, that's 15, that's, yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, oh, no, we were talking about the high deductible. What's the,
Maximum out of pocket is a little over 6,000 per person.
on the high deductible?
Each plan is different.
Yeah.
It's like 6,000, 6,500, 6,800.
Yeah, I think the high deductible would be the greatest benefit to the employees. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No problem at all. You'll find that, the more people you'll come in contact with, that saving a life is priority. That's great. But I tell people, you remember in the early 90s when cell phones looked more like shoes, and you got the bill and you held it in your hand and it was like a ream of paper and you kind of gasped before you opened it? The real trauma sets in after an air ambulance or any life-threatening emergency when the bills come in, because nobody is expecting that to happen. I had a sleep study done, I about choked. So then there's the three most scary words you'll hear in medical period, whether you're talking about a dentist or anything, is not medically necessary. And that's all that has to happen for anything not to be covered by insurance. And you never know. I mean, it depends on so many things. I couldn't even begin to speak to them.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think that where I believe council's at, if we're gonna do for city employees only, we should do both. If we're gonna do for city, full city, we should probably do both, just because of the randomness, and we don't know who's gonna show on scene. Based on my back of the napkin math here, we're about 15,000 just for city employees. And then if we were going to add in the 54,000 combined for the city residents, you'd be at 69,000 total for both in city employees and city residents. I think we're already budgeted for the about 6,000, 7,000 now. We do believe for the city employees, the 15,000, we could pull it out of the Blue Cross Blue Shield retention fund. But if we were going to do the additional 54,000, that would have to come out of general fund balance, and that would take a hit on our 2.64 million.
And is that just Gila County, or is that the upgrade for
No,
city employees?
that's the low grade.
So there's not still, even city employees, that's not the upgrade?
Well, no, the city employees would be whatever we had talked about. I know that whatever PHI is offering now and the 8,125, that's what I'm counting on for the 15,000 for our employees.
For upgrade?
Yeah. Okay. So, and, so.
Freddie, go ahead.
I know we're not gonna make a decision tonight, but could this be one of our committee agenda or committee tasks? To go over this and.
Yeah, we
kind of.
I think we could
dig through
we have our next meeting is on July 9th. I think that we could pull off between now and July 9th the financial task force and do that, and then we would. I would call Tina and say, Tina, we would probably make a decision by council on July 9th. When are you leaving on vacation? The 12th. Oh, good.
So if we approve a tentative budget, we can't raise it, we can lower it.
No, it wouldn't be a raise, because we would pull the money out of fund balance. The money is sitting in the retention fund and the fund balance. Tina would just do the transfer and adjust the numbers. It doesn't raise the cap. It's not additional spending, it's just a realignment of spending. But
It would have to come out of the contingency budget.
The contingency.
At least on paper.
Yeah,
Even if you added the revenues in, you would have to take it out of the contingency, because you couldn't raise your budget.
yeah, contingency,
Even if
fund
it's
balance.
offset by fund balance. Mayor, so I just got a quick question, because my address is Miami, because I get my mail from the Miami post office, but I do live within the city limits. And then I know people who don't live in the city limits, but their address is Globe. And so how do you guys determine whether they're actually a Globe resident or a Miami resident or?
Fantastic. So as Pam will let you know, we have a roster. So we go strictly by that roster. So when she told me the numbers were a little off, it's because she knows. And so everybody that we're gonna cover is gonna go on an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
So now we know exactly who we're covering and who we're not.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Shipley, we go through Jody and she's able to produce who's in the city through our water billing system to get a count.
Okay.
And I think we distribute through the water bill too. But no, we can get a strong count. And I go, so you have mailing address, you have the property address, and water office understands that and has a good handle on that. So that roster is provided by the city.
Well, you also have residents, City of Globe residents that live or in Arizona water jurisdiction. Lots of them.
Yes.
So how do you account for those?
Where is Jody?
Well, but we still get a City of Globe utility bill. We get the trash.
Trash and sewer.
And the sewer, so.
Is that where we get it from?
Does Jody count those people?
She does include those.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, John's back there texting you right now, but.
Freddie sends us all these high bills from the city bills.
We're gonna chip in.
Any other questions?
Just comments. I know we're not making a decision tonight, Mr. Mayor. In my career, I was an emergency manager. The best thing you can do is to assess risk and then to try to mitigate the conditions that you might be dealing with a major disaster. What is it now, Mr. Mayor? 3 years ago, we had a massive fire and a massive flood. And every day through those 6 months, we had danger in our creeks, in high water flows. The forest itself surrounded us in fire, flame. Our risk was high. The actual occurrence of danger to the public that happened in that time, that's reality, was very low. Surprisingly low. We were very lucky. Citizens were literally washed away, or bridges had collapsed, or people were killed from burning homes from the fires. I have never seen such luck throughout my career. We were very lucky. So when you ask me if I need to mitigate this into the future, of course, we have the reality of what we just went through. It's something you have to balance on your budget. Sometimes you do it a little at a time so that you maintain high quality infrastructure, or sometimes you just put a little money aside to be able to afford these services. They're not amenities at the minute they occur. They're services. And so we have to balance the reality of what we just saw from a few years ago versus mitigating that risk. And this is an opportunity to do that, and I advocate this. I know as a council we need to think about the rest of our budgets. We're going to go through that tonight. But the point is, when you can mitigate and you've seen recent history, that's a lot of thought to go to the future justification of what we have to do in this category. I was an emergency manager at the state of Arizona for 10 years, and in our planning, we have a plan A and then all the way down to a plan Z, working with state and FEMA people. The point is, you've got to build contingencies into your emergency plans, and that's the bad day that you have to pick up the phone and, in my case, pick up the phone and activate every aircraft that the National Guard owns. They're the player of last resort. But you use all of your resources up to that point. And I hope that day never comes. But I've seen that bad day when you need every resource, air assets, ground assets, to throw basically at Mother Nature. So the comment I need to leave you with is we had our disasters a few years ago. We were very fortunate. We did not have many people injured. Very fortunate. So I just want to point out, When you can mitigate and you can afford it or budget it, that's the road to go. And you hope you never have to pick up that phone and do that. So I'll leave you with that, gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
I guess this is gonna really, we need more discussion with it and before any decisions made. We really appreciate both companies coming here
Yeah, we do.
and really educating us and letting us know more about your company and costs and everything. We appreciate that very much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So Mr. Mayor, the council will pull together the council work group for financial sustainability, before, in time, so they can, make a call before we put the agenda out for the 9th. And then we'll know then, and then Pam will be in touch with both organizations and let them know the outcome on that.
Sounds good.
Okay. And thank you to Pam for doing the legwork on this.
So we go to consent calendar. Matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine or be enacted by one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. Item A, consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. 1, accounts payable, $520,324.17. Consideration of approval of council minutes. B, consideration to approve the spring bed tax distribution request for the Globe Downtown Association for the third and fourth quarter fiscal year 2023-2024 in the amount of $18,065.40 funded from account 10-51-51915 General Fund Community Organization Globe Downtown Association. Item C, consideration to approve the spring bed tax distribution request for Core Valley Center for the Arts for the third and fourth quarter of fiscal year 2023-2024 in the amount of $18,065.40 funded from the account 10-51-51920 General Fund Community Organization Core Valley Center for the Arts. Item D, consideration to approve the fall spring bed tax Economic Development Corporation for the first and second quarters of fiscal year 2024 for $21,757.01 and third and fourth quarters for fiscal year 2023-2024 for $20,323.58 for total distributions of $42,080.59 funded from account 10-51-51910 General Fund Community Organization SGEDC. And E is consideration of the donation by the Art Globe Organization for the restoration of the 1930s WPA cement Gila monster located on the retaining wall at the intersection of Oak Street and High Street. Is there anybody from the public, council, or staff wishing to remove any of these items for separate consideration?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have no reason to ask for any of these removed.
I would like to remove A just to, if there's any questions on that, I can answer some. I know Thea's not here. I know there was some questions from staff.
And staff has no questions.
Huh?
A or E?
E.
E, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff has no questions on that.
They have no questions
Yeah,
on it.
we're good.
So this is an approval to move forward with it.
Right, right, as presented.
Okay.
Good.
So did you still want to remove E?
No, I didn't know if there's any questions. There's no questions.
No, we're good.
Then I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have motion and second for approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any further questions or further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passes. So new business, item 5A. I'm gonna go, it's a public hearing in consideration to approve the new Series 9 Arizona liquor license application for the Speedway convenience store located at 1690 East Ash Street, Globe, Arizona 85501, and request to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion room. Shelley, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing, or you wanna?
I'll introduce the item, Mr. Mayor. So this is a new liquor license application for a Series 9 license for the Speedway convenience store located at 1690 East Ash. They have a current, I think, Series 6, but they're wanting to sell spirits, and so this license would cover that. we posted the liquor license for the 20 days required, and I've heard no oppositions.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's any comments from the public, or if we have anybody that's here from Speedway online or in the audience.
I believe we have the filing agent, Zoom. And that is Andrea. Andrea, are you on Zoom?
I am.
So Andrea is the filing agent for the Speedway application. If there's any questions that council has, Andrea would be happy to answer.
Any questions for Andrea?
Not really. I'm good.
Do you want to add anything, Andrea, to that request?
Oh, I'm sorry, I think I was on mute. No, thank you. We are, as Ms. Salazar mentioned, the store currently has a Series 10 beer and wine store license, and we're not gonna change the operations. Just maintain the, ownership will remain the same.
So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And item B is in another public hearing in consideration to possibly approve a new application for a Series 7.
We have to make a motion.
Oh, do we approve
Yeah,
it?
we
Yes.
got
Okay.
a request to waive the rule.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought it was on the action. Okay. Go ahead.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the new series number 9 Arizona liquor license application for the Speedway convenience store located at 1690 East Ash Street, Globe, Arizona 85501, and request to waive section 2-4-10A.
Second.
Motion is second for approval of item 5A. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. So now we can go to item B. Another public hearing and consideration to possibly approve a new application for a Series 7 Arizona liquor license application for Upton's Event Center located at 247 South Broad Street, Globe, Arizona 85501, and request to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion room. Shelley.
Mr. Mayor, this is a new application for a liquor license at the Upton Event Center located at 247 South Broad Street. This is a application for a Series 7. It's a beer and wine license. And we do have their filing agent, Lauren Merritt, also on Zoom if you have any questions. I think there was a question about the location of the Catholic Church. And according to Arizona Revised Statute, the church restriction was removed 2 years ago. So the restrictions are only for schools.
For schools,
right now.
right.
So, and Lauren, if you're online and you can hear us.
We'll go ahead and we'll open up.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and open the public hearing for comment.
Okay, Lauren, you're before council. Mhm. If you have any questions.
If you're asking me, I'm so sorry, I wasn't sure if you were asking me. I don't have any questions for council, but I am here if council has any questions for me.
Fernando.
Just a clarification, so the Series 7 is just for like special events. So they have a liquor license, so if you want to have a wedding or reunion or whatever, they don't have to request a special event permit to distribute alcohol. So they'll be able to sell it and or provide it to whoever rents the hall. Okay, but so you would be selling it, is that correct? You wouldn't like let them just bring alcohol and serve it, or how does that Series 7 work?
The Series 7 is a public license, so it is not just for special events. It is a Series 7 beer and wine bar license. So it would be alcohol that is sold, and no alcohol is never allowed to be brought to a licensed establishment. So individuals would not be able to do that unless it is a hotel, motel, Airbnb type of situation where they are renting a temporary residence. Then they're allowed to bring alcohol to that temporary residence.
Okay. Thank you.
But for the public area, it is only for resale.
Chief, you have a comment?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Apparently, I'm a little bit out of the loop on this particular one.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, it was my fault that I did not notify Dale.
Okay.
It could have been completely my fault. I would have fallen on the sword of that one. So if you could kind of, my name is Dale Walters. I'm the chief of police. If you could kind of tell me what your establishment is going to be doing.
I am the liquor agent. I am not involved with the day-to-day operations, but this is going to be an event center with a Series 7 beer and wine license, so that when they have events that, or have a wedding reception, just like the individual was saying before, they can provide alcohol at those events. It's a public license, so the public is allowed. It's not like a private club. The public is allowed to use the establishment. But it is not, it's a license that is always in place and not just for special events.
And so this location is, just if someone can answer this, is next to the church?
Yeah.
Yeah, right next to that house.
The Catholic Church.
And they're not required to get a special events permit when they're having events over there?
No. No, there's no longer a restriction for distance to a church. That was removed in 2022.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm talking about, this is more of a question for
So
city staff.
the need of a special event permit is if they need any city services, if they need barricades, if they need extension of premises, if they need extra security or anything like that.
And I do a lot of special events with the bars for the Miami Lions Club. So if you're having a function somewhere and you want to sell alcohol for a fundraiser for a nonprofit, then if that establishment does not have a liquor license already, then we would apply for a special event permit liquor license from the state, which has to be approved by the governing jurisdiction, which is either the town, the city, or the county, but it's only for that one event. And you specify the time frame and what the purpose is. And the money has to be tied to, so if I'm selling, the money's got to go to a nonprofit. And so
my concern from my perspective about is not necessarily the liquor license, it's the event center itself. It's one thing adding another bar on old historic Broad Street. It's another thing putting an event center in there that might have nothing for 2 weeks, but then might have 300 guests on a Saturday night. How do I plan for that? So I guess my question as the chief of police is there a mechanism in place where we get proper notification and we're able to plan for that? So there's traffic issues, there's extra personnel down there and things like that. So those are just my concerns, but.
Freddie, go ahead.
Maybe you can answer this. What is the normal process in having these conversations prior to bringing it to council with these kinds of requests and our police and fire and public works? Is there a meeting that you have in advance to discuss these things?
It was my fault. I failed to notify police or fire.
So I take it that's a yes. There's typically a meet to discuss.
I don't think we do it more casually before. I don't think we usually have special events, but usually we would give them a heads up that there's something on the agenda.
And that's their opportunity to discuss. I get, that this is a business oriented type thing, but I would ask that maybe we take some time and have that conversation with our whoever it was that didn't make this, but I just would not like to see that we step outside of a standard that we've been doing when it comes to liquor licenses and things like that. I don't know if this is an urgent item, but I really feel like our police chief and maybe even our fire or whoever needs to have this conversation, that conversation has to be had. I don't know that this is the platform and the forum to just hash that out tonight. With all due respect to our chief of police. He deserves that time.
I agree with you, Freddie, but they're also asking to waive the rules, so there must be some urgency for this, correct?
Oh, the applicants are here.
Or the applicants are here?
Okay.
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 So jump up here.
To the podium.
Freddie, just a comment on, and I think Fernando stated it as, I know when I apply for the liquor license for an event at the church in Miami, I have to go to the town of Miami council. I have to get approval from their governing body before I can even apply for a liquor license. And in this case, they're saying they don't have to, but maybe a notification that you're having an event, so our police staff can.
We had to apply for the, license to run a business there. And we did that properly. We went down there, we paid for everything. Before we got the license, we had to get okayed from a building. We had to get okayed from Public Works, and we had to get okay from fire. We took an additional 12 months to get okayed with fire. We had to put in a suppression system throughout the entire building. Cost us close to $100,000. We would like to start making up for that money. And we have a lot of debt, and we have we have events we've been kind of advertising a little bit, and we have events that want to go in there this next month. So we would like to move this. And we can work with police.
Let me help you.
Okay.
I think we need to have a special events center here in the community.
We do.
I think approving the liquor license tonight is probably the right thing to do. The only thing I ask is if we're gonna partner, we need to put some type of notification mechanism in place so we're able to manage that as we move forward. That's all I had.
Fair enough.
Fernando?
Because I do a lot of these, there really isn't another venue that has a liquor license to do this, because now it doesn't put it on the people that are trying to put on the event to try to figure out how to get alcohol to that venue. And so, like, if you think of all the places that we have venues, you have to do a special event for any time you want to sell alcohol. And if you want to bring alcohol to those events, you have to provide proof that you have insurance, that you're covered for that purpose. You have to have somebody run the bar to make sure no one there. So having a venue like that that's already has that liquor license would be a huge benefit to the community as a whole.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mayor and Council, I agree with everything Councilmember Shipley just said, but we do need to keep in mind that if somebody in the Castaneda family got married there, I don't know if I have enough cops full-time to be on cover. So there has to be a mechanism in place that we can get a heads up on it and prepare for that.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, there's a series of texts flying back and forth between about 4 staff members and Shelley and I. And I think we have a framework for a process that this won't slip through the cracks and I won't miss this again.
Mike, go ahead.
So.
What is the capacity of your event center?
332 people standing, but we have about 180 chairs right now. But we have a sign posted for 332 people, max personnel's inside.
And that meets our requirements as far as fire and.
Oh, sure, dude.
Trust, we went through all the different stuff, over 12 months.
12 months of
the only person I didn't talk to was police. Sorry, police.
You have to understand, I'm adopted. Like I said, that wouldn't take up just the bride's family. So, like every other event here, there are exceptions where we can do extensions of premises and things like that. I hope we need something like this in our community. I completely agree with that. I'm fine with the liquor license. That's much easier in the long run for everybody involved. However, it's just a mechanism of notification so we can properly support it as we move forward. So that's all I ask.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Sorry, Paul.
No, Freddie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give our police chief an opportunity to clear this, as you know, he was caught off guard, as he said. And I firmly agree that your business venture is valuable.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm not trying to take away from it. I just want to make sure that there is complete just a good working relationship with not just the people that you have dealt with already in the city, but more importantly, or most importantly, our police, because, you know, they're gonna be tasked with having to maintain the peace. So that's all I was going at. Just looking for transparency, that's all.
Yes, yes.
I don't wanna get too far off the subject. Does that have a kitchen in it too, or you're just gonna sell alcohol and have events there?
So we have a, like a prep station in the back with a 3-stage sink, hand washing sink, and a vegetable sink. It's not considered a kitchen because there's no cooking in there. But there's refrigerators and there's 2 nice restrooms, ADA approved, and the whole 9 yards, and yeah.
Very good.
Well, I'm glad you complied because, you know, as a city, you know, we want to make sure that our businesses are safe and their patrons. And so I applaud you for all the efforts you've made.
Thank you. I want to see Globe keep growing and going up, and
so do we.
Yes. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
You need to close the special meeting.
You have to close it for
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other comments? We'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments, I move to approve item 5B as stated and waive section 2-4-2 provide a special rule.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item 5B. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposing, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Chief. So we go to action items, and we have on action item, item A, consideration to approve the adoption of the City of Gove fiscal year 2024-2025 tentative budget in the amount not to exceed $66,300,245, which includes $19 million in the unfunded grant requests and direction to make possible adjustments within the budget, and announce the public hearing date of July 16, 2024 for the adoption of the final budget, and July 30th, 2024 for the adoption of the property tax levy.
Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we're here to consider the tentative budget. Like I said, it's been a labor of trying to get this together. It's come together very well. I wanted to quickly go through the a review of some of the additions that we've added since I think we last talked, that are kind of key additions. And so on the budget updates, we did a market study used by directors addressing retention, attraction, succession planning, and employee equity. That includes $367,910 in additional department employee funding. There may be an adjustment about within 20,000 on there, depending as we hammer out the last little bit of public works budgeting and make sure. So I wanted to put that caveat of about 20,000. This includes also $140,300 in department CIP requests, and all employees from directors on down will include a 2.5 merit increase this year. And we plan to keep that merit increase. Keeping the merit increase in place keeps us less and less likely to have to do market adjustments. It keeps us in the market. If the market cools just a bit, we should be right on track. Go ahead. Highlights, we'll be creating a battalion chief position currently posted. We're increasing officer pay, starting officer pay to $57,924, so roughly $58,000. Public Works, increasing starting pay to $15.51 an hour. Administratively, we'll be creating an assistant city manager position to be posted for internal applicants. We'll create a development services director position to be posted for internal applicants, and create a building inspector position to be posted for both internal and external applicants. Go ahead. Highlights of budget add-ons, general fund. City prosecutor, and we will be adding 18,000 to allow staff to have someone to rely on and to actually present the cases to the city magistrate. CVS building is general fund. And I think it'll help support our efforts to make sure that we do proper service to our process and building and code enforcement, and making sure we're carrying that forward properly.
Is that gonna be a as needed position?
The city prosecutor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be cases that, I mean, I think there's some cases that are pretty simple, and then there's some, mainly commercial code is probably the one that's gonna be that we will definitely use that. I think residential code, I think some of those are pretty simple. And then there are a few every year that the police use for civil traffic. CVS building maintenance, like say, you'd look at a fire escape and refreshing the wood on the front. But Mayor, we will also talk about I think with the rain, we got a good gushing on the awnings, but they're still looking faded. So we'll talk about the faded awnings and the heavy duty tinting on the windows that make it look closed. I think that one. So fire station set aside, because we are in the process of trying to line up long-term funding to build our new fire station. We have put in $200,000 this year, even though we probably will not have a funding lined up this year. We wanted to start parking some money and show that we can carry the debt service when we do go out for loans and need to pay those off of general fund. Michelson Building match funds, we have $750,000. We need to. Okay, we need to, we have $750,000 grant that we need to supply $150,000 partially a match, and maybe a little bit more that we're sharing with the county. But county's been our great partner in that, and we're working together to get that up and going. We should have an update presentation very soon on that one, because we're back on track with that. General plan update is almost 10 years since City of Globe did their general plan. I think it was award-winning general plan done by Zubia Group, and we need to do an update on that, and that's a big public process. It's a chance for everybody to chime in on where we're going, and it helps us. It's the perfect timing on that, but it does take some funding to get that general plan put together. Architect for city design, we had community development block grant discussions. We did not pick, one of the options was some upgrades at City Hall. We did not pick that one. I think one of the reasons we didn't have a good price as to exactly what that was. And so that's a little bit of money, so we can go in there and set up a design and get some pricing. And when we come back in a year, or we find other funding, we know exactly what we're asking for to improve City Hall and what the pricing would be.
Freddie, go ahead. Thank you. Paul, the architect, or this item that we're talking about, does that also include engineering?
I don't believe so. I think it depends on the architect we use and how complex it is. I know we would use engineered plans, and I know some architects do have engineer stamps. It depends.
Okay.
So it's a good question, but I think what you're getting at is, yes, we too are required to have stamp plans, either engineer or architect.
Well, I'm just thinking, it'd be a great deal if we could have it designed and engineered.
Yes.
And now, the next step would be much simpler.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that would be the path we would look down. So, but like I say, it's just mainly the doors and some area in the front water office, so it's not a real complex. It's not like building the second floor.
Which we can do one of these
We'll
days.
save that for a year, so, but.
Let's get out of the flood zone. Let's get out of the
I have a question, Sharon.
CBS building and build everything here.
So the architect for city design, just out of curiosity, if I was planning to do something with my building, it was said to be that I have to have an engineered, stamped drawing. Is that correct? So, and that price varies per project, correct? Because I've been told anywhere from $750 all the way up to $7,000.
I think the question to
so I'm just curious.
Mr. Manfredi if we were doing upgrades, as we talked about, we would need stamped or engineered plans to do that in City Hall.
You want me to?
Yes, go ahead. And maybe just talk about the threshold and when that's, I don't think I could find an example when it wasn't required. I think only if it was residential and you weren't moving. Go ahead.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. My understanding of the question is when that rule applies, Councilman, is for a sealed set of plans. So on commercial projects, depending on the scope of work, that rule does always apply. And it does for residential as well, depending on the nature of the work being done. Again, it's the scope of the work that is being conducted. It can be waived based on the information that comes to the building official and based on the scope and the nature of work.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Tony, it can only be waived in a residential setting where the owner says that he will continue to live in that house for over a year.
Yeah, so you have owner builder proclamation. It's ARS rule. It's a 1-year rule. If you're going to live in it or possess it for 1 year or longer, then you can do that work. Owner builder doesn't need to be stamped set of plans by an engineer. It doesn't excuse the possibility of requiring a stamped design professional still. So again, just that 1 year doesn't matter. It's the engineering that's the difference. So you have a stamped set by an architect, and then you have a stamped sealed set by a PE, an engineer. The two differences. So again, depending on the scope and nature of the project, and then also whether it's residential or commercial, and then also depending back to the building official's approval, goes back to the scope and nature of the project. And then it also, there's a determination on what we are talking about here as well. So is it structural? Is it just non-structural? Is it appliance driven? There's a lot of factors there. And then fire department, through the IFC, has different requirements as well. Pretty much the same across the board, but there may be some different UL requirements or listing requirements that come along with, depending on what we're talking about. This is a broad statement, so depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah, so Mayor and council members, when, primarily, especially when we're dealing with systems, if we're dealing with systems related to fire suppression, when we're dealing with systems related to anything like that, ventilation requirements and stuff, those do require the stamp set of plans to accompany it to ensure that it meets the requirements of whatever location, facility that it's being installed in.
Have these always been in place, or would it just take effect?
For
stamped drawings, has this
stamped
always been a requirement for?
That has been a requirement within the code. Yes.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And if I can just add to that, that was required, so not only IFC, but the I-codes as well.
Thank you both. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the enterprise fund, we some of the highlights there, we will be hiring a water attorney. We're getting, like say, effluent and negotiations with some of our partners is on the horizon, and so we want to have a little bit of money so we can retain and consult with an attorney on water and effluent negotiations, costs, rates. credits. I think the credit part is the part that is the most used but complicated, so. And then the jetter truck, we have 600,000 there, for the jetter truck. We did receive a, 116,000, in the payoff from the previous jetter truck, that is no longer with us. But we, it's a key component, used by Public Works, by sewer, to keep the sewers, clean and flowing. It has a spray head that reaches 500 feet, in any direction, and I think a vacuum does wonderful things to make sure that everybody's sewers are working properly. It's tough without having one in-house. We have to go and rent one for $3,000 to $5,000 every time we need it. We're not as quick to rent one, so purchasing this out of water enterprise fund sewer is, I think, a really important purchase. So we need to have that truck. We're kind of going backwards, and we're just going to be paying rental fee after rental fee.
Mayor, so what we went through this whole budget like last week, but I forgot to ask, will the jetter truck have a camera so that you can scope the lines and see what you're actually dealing with?
Mayor and council, to answer your question, yes, there's additional add-ons we can do. We actually have a camera van that we utilize for some minor stuff, and then we have the rolling portable cameras. So there's different versions of that. It kind of goes into our future plan as far as scoping, jetting all our lines that we're gonna be cameraing this line, so, yes.
Okay.
Now, we do have a budget we must stay within, so.
Yeah, but you want to be able to see it.
We have I think there's an iPhone attachment.
Oh, cool. So,
Freddie has a question.
yeah, that can be added on later, right? It doesn't have to be, with the truck as we purchase it, or not.
With mayor and council, with, to answer your question, yes, with anticipation of adding on, you know, we can always get it, you know, it's just like any other project, you can get it ready for add-ons, which, like Paul says, we have a budget. So the model that we saw had the bells and whistles, we've scaled that down. It's kind of above what we had, but those types of things could be added on, you know.
Okay.
We'll definitely stay within budget.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, John, would a camera on the end of that be useful?
Oh, yes, yes, it always is, but once you're actually running that pressure, that reel through there, you're not gonna have a camera on that because it's doing all the work and you could damage the camera. But like I said, there's different methods of having the cameras, the portables to our camera van, that we're utilizing that now. So that's why the jetter truck is key to get actually, once we're cleaning the lines and inspecting, so it's just part of a whole, another process.
And then get a couple extra sets of chalks on it, so.
So, yeah, more than that, yes.
Thanks, John.
All right, and so going on, so that's our add-ons. The next steps coming up tonight. We're if council so pleases, we'll hopefully be adopting the tentative budget at this regular council meeting. After this, Shelley will publish the tentative budget documents and the final budget notice on for the 3rd and the 10th at the Silver Belt. July 16th, and that is a Tuesday. We will be holding a special council meeting for final adoption of the budget, 6 p.m. It's off the cycle, but because we have to post for 2 weeks and because of the time frame, we can't get the postings happening. We need 3 weeks between meetings to get the postings for 2 weeks. So that's why we're pushing that out to the 16th. And then July 30th, then we can get our adoption of the property tax rate. Special council meeting, we can do it 2:30. I think we are lowering that by a smidge.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were actually, and remember the property tax rate is the valuations times rate equals a levy. And to keep the levy the same as we promised and done year after year after year, we will actually take it down a fraction. But there's the only increases in the property tax collection is from new construction. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. If there's any questions before we go to the actual run through of the budget. Tina.
So I got two things. One is, did we get the workforce development budgeted into the budget funds?
Let me double check on that. We can, if we didn't, we will make sure we have that as an add-on.
Because when we were at the Leagues of Cities and Towns, they made it clear that the federal government is going to be looking to make workforce development funding available, but we would only be able to spend that money if we have a budgeted line item for it. So I want to, even if we never get any of that money, I'd like to see it budgeted so that we can spend it, which is the second point that I want to make is we are not going to spend $66 million, but cities cannot spend money that they don't budget. And so if we don't budget for it, even if we never spend it, we can't spend it even if we have the money. And so we have to kind of over budget on several things so that way if something happens, we're flexible enough to be able to react to it and or accept money to be able to do something that we want to do. And so just want you guys to know that we're not going to spend $66 million on our budget, but that is the budget so that.
No, we can make sure that we meet that technical requirement, so we're available for those grants.
Would the 19 million unfunded grant amount be part of that, or?
Yeah, and we will get, when we get to the grant page, I think we can do that. What was your other question?
That was two.
I thought you had.
No, that was two. That was two.
Oh, that was
so
two.
One point was to make sure people understand that our budget is, we have to do that so that we can spend the money if we need to. Because we're not allowed to spend money that's not budgeted.
Right.
And so we have to think ahead. And then the other was to make sure we do put a budget line item for workforce development because I'd hate to leave money on the table because we forgot to put it in the
Right.
budget.
Exactly. No, and thank you for double checking on that. We will double check. Okay. So with Mr. Mayor, members of council, with that, I'd like to invite.
I have
Tina.
a question on your highlights on when you talk with a battalion chief position. You didn't put whether it's going to be posted internal, external.
It has been posted both internal and it's been posted external, internal, both.
And is that a permanent position or a temporary position?
We would call that an overhire position. So through a whole series of we've seen that succession planning is really, really important. So right now we are looking at that position as getting someone in place in order to possibly move up as we have movement in the deputy chief and the fire chief. And so I do not, in the time that takes, I don't have a timeline as those things happen. But I don't think that we've had the discussion right now that a battalion chief is necessary given the single station and the scope of our department. But there's pros and cons on that. But right now, as I budget for that, my anticipation, I would call that a overhire position.
Thank you.
Okay. And Tina, do you want to do from the table or from?
I was gonna do it from the table, but there's not a microphone at the table, so I realized and I don't think I wanna handhold one, cause.
No, I think, Danny, would it pick it up? Oh,
Yeah,
you
I'm
better
not,
say
you
that.
know, Carmen came up here and she has some vocalization that was impressive, but I would just,
Okay.
I'm just gonna do it from here. I think I can see the slides here, and if, Shelley will just move them along for me, I think I'll do okay. But thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you again for allowing me to represent Pat Walker Consulting and be here to help you put together your fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. I'm gonna go through the slide. You've heard the city manager's comments. I'm gonna just do the budget presentation and then we'll have questions. If you have any really specific questions, I will go to my laptop if there's something that you really need me to look up. If I talk too fast, feel free to slow me down. I get kind of nervous and start reading through numbers quite quickly, so if you need me to just slow down a little, feel free.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Did I miss the manager's comments?
Well, you cleared the room.
Were you gonna make more managers' comments? I thought that was your slide presentation. Go for it. I'm sorry. We'll begin
Present the
with this.
budget and everybody leaves.
That's, well, listen, you know, that's not a bad thing.
No, and like I said, this budget being put together was put together with, repeated meetings with departments and both in the operational, the capital, and in the staffing. We are using modest projections, as we have, and, because we know that that's a better thing, it's safer. I had a finance director once tell me there's conservative finance directors and there's unemployed finance directors. And so with Pat Walker, she falls in that conservative, conservative group. I think, Tina, you are gonna talk about the hit from the state on the state shares. And I will tell you that the biggest change that we're going to make in doing this budget and implementing this budget is make sure that we go after and make sure that we are collecting what is owed to the city, what is due to the city. We have grants that we have to make sure that we're following up and getting our reimbursements. We're bringing that in. Make sure that everyone is that development is paying for itself, and that fees are not levied unfairly or inconsistently. And so that is one of the prime focuses for finance staff, that we up our game and making sure that we treat everybody fair and make sure that we go after what we need to, not leave money on the table. That was my comments.
That includes TPT taxes?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So if I hit this, Shelley, will it advance, or do you want me to tell you? Was that me or you?
That's you.
That was me? Great, okay. So I'm gonna follow the same format that I did last year. You will see mostly the same slides with the updated numbers. This is the big picture, revenues by fund, each of your major funds. I won't go into too much detail on this slide because I will cover the general fund revenues separately. And I will mostly be comparing the adopted budget to the proposed budget, so I've highlighted those columns in yellow so that they stand out. I will occasionally also be discussing what's the estimated fiscal year 24, if that is having an impact on the decision that we're making for fiscal year 25. Overall, the growth is 1.27 million. That's the 65.3 to the 66.6. That's just slightly hid there. But I will again go over each of these as I cover each one of the funds separately. Again, this is the revenue budget. This is the big picture's expenditures. So all the numbers look the same because our revenues match our expenditures. And you will see on here, I want to just address briefly that you'll see that total of $66,606,237 at the bottom, but you're adopting a budget of $66,300,244, and that is because your transfers, when you transfer money to the general fund, it shows up on the general fund expenditure line, but then when the library and active adults spend it, that's when it's really your expenditure. You don't take a hit twice. That's eliminated out of your expenditure budget. Because of home rule, you guys aren't as tight, but certainly in cities and towns where what your expenditure limit, it's very important that you get those transfers eliminated out. So I just showed that at the very bottom as a negative, so you understand that you're adopting an expenditure budget and your transfers in between two funds don't get counted. None of the budgets right now are projected to be over by funds, so everything in the estimated column is less than the adopted column, which is great. That's how we want to see our budgets at the end of the year. Individual departments in the general fund may need budget adjustments because of some things. We budgeted the PSPRS payment in council, but it found out later it really has to hit fire and police. So there will still be some budget adjustments as you go through audit prep, and when you finish your end of year, there's still adjustments that you make between those funds, but between those departments. But by fund, everything is within its adopted budget for the forecast. The largest savings that you'll see are either contingencies held in reserve in the general fund, so that's why when you see your estimate is $16.4 million to be spent in the general fund where you adopted an $18 million budget, that's because your $2.9 million fund balance was in there as a contingency. So you weren't expecting to spend that fund, you weren't wanting to spend that money. This is your not to exceed proposed budget number. And as you mentioned, Mayor, you set the limit now and doesn't mean you're gonna spend it. You know, Councilman Shipley, you mentioned that. It's not the budget you're gonna spend, it's the capacity. And so that if someone comes along and gives you a huge grant, you wanna have the ability to make decisions with that. As Paul stated, to develop the expenditures for this coming year, I did meet with the individual departments as far back as January. I think Rael at the library was my first meeting at the end of January. I met with the chief of police and fire both at the end of February. I've had several meetings with Public Works and their project team. So I feel like we've had a lot of good input on this budget, and the departments have had a real opportunity to tell me what's their carryover, what's been finished, what needs to be accounted for in the coming budget.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I don't mean to interrupt Tina, but we did a primary run through of department needs on operations. Sometimes when we get in the budget crunch, we'll have to go back and kind of take a little bit more off and tighten those numbers. Our staff is very good about only asking for what they really need in operations, and we accepted that and never went back and trimmed that or made any adjustments unless we requested to, and I don't think we did that much trimming at all. So that's always a good thing when we can just take it as it's first laid out, because that's really their need.
No, I liked what you said earlier, that your budget's a roadmap, but there's times where you recalculate your route. So that can still happen. But that's what council is for. And you did some of that during the year. There were a few budget adjustments that came to council during the year. So, and I'll try and address those when you see them. Okay, the general fund revenues, we'll talk a little bit more in detail. As far as taxes, the property tax levy, I'll talk about in the next slide, but the remaining taxes are up about $1 million over the adopted budget, or about 11%. And what this tells me is that when we did the 24 revenue budget, we were very conservative. We were hoping for these revenues, to see these revenues, but we weren't budgeting every dollar at that point, and that was, you know, it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. Now we are budgeting a 1.5% growth over the current budgeted revenue. So the $10,000,068 is about a 1.5% growth on the sales tax. This is the city sales tax. This feels a little bit more aggressive, but as Paul mentioned, the city's goal is to not leave any funding on the table and ensure that the residents and businesses and visitors are paying their fair share. So we're still comfortable with this amount of growth. Licenses and permits are a flat number from last year's budget. But again, we're planning on improvements in the Development Services Department to continue to improve these revenues. Intergovernmental is what Paul mentioned, is the state shared sales tax, TPT, vehicle license, and urban revenue sharings. These are based on the league's estimates that we got as late as May. These are down $404,000 over the fiscal year 24 adopted budget. These are also still anticipated to go down again in fiscal year 26, and we won't start to see growth again until fiscal year 27. So again, we will be monitoring these, seeing how these are actually coming in, and then recalculating route if that, you know, is what has to happen down the road in the future. Franchise fees are up about $57,000, and that's based on the projections for this year, and again, improved collection efforts from the Development Services Department. Charges for services are up about $455,000, and that is what Paul talked about. We are capturing the revenue from the SRO officers from Gila County. We didn't have that budgeted. We had one officer budgeted last year, and we've got 3 budgeted this year, as well as getting collections on some old HIDA and GITM and DEMA grants. So the finance department really has been working diligently this year to collect on some past revenues, as well as improve this revenue forecast for fiscal year 25. Fines and forfeitures, we just kept that flat at 113,000. The estimate's 124, but again, that's just not the kind of revenue you build your whole budget on. You just don't know what your fines and your forfeitures are going to be. Miscellaneous interest and miscellaneous revenues includes interest. They are up slightly, but that is due in part to, that's where we've booked the retention funding that we're getting from Blue Cross Blue Shield to help kind of buy down our healthcare costs. So we had to show that somewhere in the budget as a revenue, and so that's part of the reason that went up. And then there's a small budget for contributions. The mines are very generous to the city and other donors as well, and so you just have usually some amount of voluntary contributions and donations that you can plan on to happen on a regular basis. So that brings your general fund revenues at $19,569,256. I will just go briefly over the property tax levy. This is what you will be making a decision on what did we say, July 30th? I think July 30th is the date. Again, this is a flat levy. So in order to not have to do a truth and taxation hearing, to tell the voters, and not just tell the voters, but really have the truth be that you are not raising their taxes, you have to assess the same levy on the same property as the year before. And to do that, we had to drop the rate from 1.2255 to 1.2221, which means on all the property last year, if you applied that rate, you would get the same $538,328 that is your current year property tax levy. The growth that you'll see in new property is that $3,593, which is that new rate applied to new construction. So your total levy without any truth and taxation hearing is $541,935. So that's the levy and the rate that you will be adopting at the end of July. That's it. Now I'll go through just the general fund by department. And again, this is the area where you will see that, admin, let's see. So police and fire, you had a budget and the estimates are higher, and I'll go through each of those. Council dropped by $600,000 because previously the PSPRS payment was budgeted in council, and that's not where it's going to occur. So we didn't put that in the budget there in 25. There is actually an increase of about $89,000 in the council budget once you take that $600,000 out, and that is due in part to half a year of the new council pay increases, which will take effect in January of 25, as well as the Blue Cross Blue Shield Wellness Fund, which you've talked about, these scans and those, and that's a separate fund that Blue Cross Blue Shields, we have the revenue posted for it, and the matching expense here is council, and the reimbursement of the gym fees, and there was an increase to that. There are also some additional audits this year. We were behind, so we'll be paying for 2 audits this year. The community groups and bed tax, we just dropped the expectation a little based on the current projections. It was $250,000 in the adopted budget. The estimate's only about $202,000, maybe even a little less than that, because we're still waiting for those revenues to show up at the end of the year. So we've just dropped it to $225,000. And I know that council is still looking at the administration of this program and how those dollars are going to be distributed. But again, that's one where you have the tax. When the tax comes in, you make the decision how to spend the money. So they're a matching set. Yes,
On the
ma'am.
bed tax, you're saying 225 for the proposed budget. What if it does exceed that and go to 250 in that fiscal year?
Okay, well, this will kind of address what Councilman Shipley was talking about, and your concerns are, you have that, when you get down to your contingency in the general fund, you have 2.6. That's money you don't ever intend to spend because it's your fund balance. So if you have a new revenue that comes in, you can drop your contingency and move that from contingency to an expenditure line, this one, any place else, and it's not affecting your fund balance because you've got some unrealized revenue. So the next year, your fund balance stays the same, but that's why appropriating your fund balance, it's really giving you that capacity. So you would be able to do those adjustments.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, so Tina, do you cover the expenditure side? And I mean, we basically just, for bed tax. So we're not doing a distribution or a split or anything like that, because we're not going to have the bed tax solution adopted, and so we in the actual budget line item, you just have one community revenue
Yeah.
expense.
So for now, in the tentative budget and probably also the final budget, you'll just see one line. I'm not going to define what each of those 5 agencies is going to receive because you haven't made that decision yet. So.
And I don't think we're projecting that it will, yeah, you just never know which way it's gonna hit. Hopefully it goes higher.
Thank you.
Administration budget is reduced by $156,518, which is in part the reduction of the fund balance contingency from 2.9 to 2.66, which we've talked about with those capital projects that you put into the budget, as well as you did actually make a decision during this fiscal year to move 45,000 of fund balance to a Pivot Air. And I will talk about in the fire. No, is it Pivot Air?
It was
It's
fire
called Pivot
department.
Air. Okay, but I've got a note for that in fire. So, and additionally, one of the things I did last year, which I know better now, is that I in the administrative budget, I had put all the merit raises for all of the general fund departments, just kind of as a $140,000 line item there. I didn't do that year. They're spread appropriately throughout each department, so that also caused the administration budget to come down. And some of the contracts and consultants were reduced a little as the decision was made to share some of these expenses with the enterprise fund. This is appropriate, so you have some procurement and finance people that, the general fund doesn't have to carry the whole burden of that because they are providing benefit to your enterprise funds as well. The fire department is up $1,031,000. And again, some of the city managers covered this with the new battalion chief position, increased rates for the medics that was done last year. There were some market adjustments, equity, retention, succession planning that he mentioned added as well. $422,000 of that is the estimated PSPRS collection for this year. That would be the unfunded liability payment for next year. So again, out of council, half in fire, half in police. This is important to do this, and you've made this decision because the PSPRS rate went from 42% to 47% this year for the Tier 1 employees. So it's super important that we're making those payments on that unfunded liability. And again, there's 28,000 of approved capital purchases for harnesses, vent fan, and fire hose that council recommended from the fund balance. So those are some of the CIP items that you put in. Police is also up $1,050,000, similar to fire, some of the same reasons. The PSPRS payment is in police now. They also received $27,800 in capital purchases for training gear, drone, evidence storage building, which I know what that is now. I kept saying, what is Evidence Connects, So that's mostly I knew what accounting code to put it in. Similarly, the PSPRS rates went from 41% to 46%, so that was about a $118,000 increase just in retirement benefits. As well as the significant market and equity adjustments that were made to improve retention in that department. And I think Paul has discussed that the police made the decision to give up 2 FTEs to help fund some of those. You'll see that when I go through the employee list schedule. The magistrate department increased by about $10,000, which oddly enough is actually due to a change in health plans for one of the employees. It's kind of an interesting thing that can make that big of a difference in a very small department. Public Works here is actually in the general fund down $98,000, but it is due to some right sizing. You'll see again on the FTEs that some positions have moved from general fund Public Works to water because of the nature of the position. So some of that was some savings put over there. They are funded for 44 positions overall, and they also received $26,000 in capital funding for cement mixer, GIS licenses and software, and new basketball backboards for the parks. So they may also have some changes tentative to final, so you might see a few changes that he was still talking about for some merit and equity and bringing the minimum wage workers up a little. The museum is up about $105,000. That is really the completion of the Beshbagawa renovation. So it's some old grant money that's appropriated in there as well as a match for the current grant that they've got. Economic development is up by $424,000. But that includes some of the things Paul talked about, the city plans, general plan update, the new building inspector position, $150,000 in match funding for the Michelson building is in Economic Development Department. And between tentative and final, we will probably move that that assistant city manager position out of economic development and up into admin. So that'll be a tentative to final change. It won't have an impact on the budget overall. The budget for the pool is down because the construction work is completed, and any payments that may still be made will accrue to 2024, to fiscal year 2024. This is the first year of really looking at a full budget with our own lifeguard staff. So really seeing how the rental and the admissions are working and the revenues look like. There's still a lot to be watched in terms of managing that pool budget. And fleet is up only about 12,500, and a quarter of that is just increased salaries, and the rest is mostly increased vehicle and equipment maintenance, which is what you would expect in a fleet department. So I do remind you that all of these budgets now do include that 2.5% merit increase that will be applied as evaluations are done during the year. So this is the fun one, talking about FTEs, because it's always weird when you, full-time equivalent, that's what an FTE is. Most of the time that makes sense, but when we get to the pool, it gets a little weird. So like last year, it doesn't include the 7 members of council, your fire reserves, your volunteer fire and your reserve fire, and your 3 fire pension positions. So this is apples to apples to what I presented last year. Administration added a payroll clerk mid-year, and then but that's the only change that they had last year, except that I told you from tentative to final, we will move a position from economic development to admin. Fire during the year increased the part-time fire marshal position to full-time mid-year, and then you have the battalion chief that's being added, so that's the change, bringing them to 19. Police actually increased by 3 positions mid-year, because 2 of those were those additional SRO officers that we didn't have in the budget at the beginning of the year. So that's 2 of the 3 that were added mid-year. The third one is an overhire for succession planning, so eventually that one should drop off. And then, as I said, going from 24 to 25, they have voluntarily decreased 2 positions in order to increase base pay and improve the retention of the current staff.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, just a reminder that in police, the SROs are fully funded for 3 years. This is the second year of that. The 3 of them are fully funded by the district. I think the GET'em is 75%, 25%. HIDA, I think, is about almost about 50-50. It's a little bit lower. And what am I missing? I think that's
There's a new DEMA grant, I believe.
Oh yeah, there's some funding for about 1/3 of a couple positions there. So there are a lot of that. Those positions do have outside funding. Dale reminds me of often.
So Public Works, you'll see 3 positions mid-year. Again, 2 of those were positions that moved to water. And the other 1 position was actually mid-year. They dropped 2 positions to create 1 new position. So that was one of the minus ones that happened mid-year. And then from 24 to 25, that -1 also is a position moved to water. So when you see the next slide, you'll see that Public Works had 45 last year and still has 44 going into this year. The only real difference being that they combined 2 to create 1 during the year. Again, pool's kind of an anomaly. I'll go through this and kind of explain it. You have, originally when we started planning to have our own lifeguards and not have contracted staff, we thought we'd have 2 full-time and 13 half-time. So that's 13 half-time is 6.5 FTEs plus the 2. So as the budget was being developed, they're like, oh no, it's gonna take a lot more people than that. We're probably gonna have 16 half-time employees. So I went to 10. Reality is, I think there's 24 of them out there, and they're probably working a quarter of a time, and some of them are half-time, and some of them are more than that, because managing a pool and managing a pool hours is what Lisa has to do with lots of people doing lots. You probably have some lifeguards out there, who work very few hours, others that work more. So that's really the 1.5 increase in the budget overall when you look at it, but it's just kind of hard to count those because you have just so many part-timers. Economic Development added a customer service specialist mid-year, and then the building inspector that you've added for FY twenty-five is the increase from 7 to 8 there, and museum and fleet have had no changes. So if I can remind you, when we go to the special revenue funds, water picked up 2 in mid-year and 1 during the budget cycle from just general fund public works. Everybody else stayed the same. So overall, the real total is that you added a battalion chief and you added a building inspector and you dropped 2 police officers. That's really the net effect to the whole budget. So in terms of staffing. Getting into the meat of it, this is our heaviest construction slide. So this is your HERF road funds, your excise tax funds, and your bridge fund. I combine them all because they're all interrelated. You have pieces of the Pinal Creek Bridge, you have pieces of the Jesse Hay Sidewalk, all of these within these 3 funds. I will say the HERF revenue funds are down again. That's another state shared fund. It didn't take quite as big a hit as percentage. It's about $13,000 less than last year, but it is. But we have a larger fund balance carried forward, so there's still money in the HERF fund to get things done. The excise revenues are based roughly on the forecast, so we increased those a little based on a strong forecast. But again, we fully appropriated the fund balance for work on the road, repairs, striping, and paving. And the bridge fund has no new revenues. The $4.7 million or the $5 million in fund balance is all those grants that came in 2021, 23. So all of that is just appropriated fund balance for completion. So I'll talk about the expenses. HERF operational expenses are up just about $44,000, and that's personnel, that's maintenance, as well as the construction for HERF CIP construction. That $546,000 includes the HERF portion of the completion of the Pinal Creek Bridge, which is $305,000, which is up a little bit. I think last December, I thought their contribution would be about $250,000, but we've added about $55,000 to the HERF contribution towards that. There is $147,000 there on HERF contingency. That's just sort of a normal business of planning a 15% contingency of your operations. So if they needed to spend that or wanted to spend that, they would have to come to council for that. The road tax fund also for its construction, that $2.8 million is the $1.7 million towards the completion of Pinal Creek Bridge. That's the same exact number I gave you last December for that. And it also has $671,000 for street repair materials. And then there's another line item in the road excise tax of about $415,000, which is matching funds for a couple of different projects you've got out there, road and sidewalk grants, ADOT transportation for alternative streets, as well as the Safe Street grants. So we've kind of got them, all that money appropriated, some for the bridge, some for maintenance, some for matching funds for these grants that are coming in. These are really your biggest capital projects outside of your WIFA loan projects. The water fund is up about $4.6 million. Now, the bulk of this is that we had budgeted $1.3 million for an Army Corps grant last year. That actually ended up being a $2.1 million grant, so there was an increase of $750,000 in the budget for that, as well as the entire $3 million WIFA water conservation grant. So that's $3,750,000 of that growth is just that water conservation grant and the Army Corps grant. That's in both the revenues and expenditures. There's a fund balance carry forward of about $2.7 million, which is in part, that includes your securing future water. So in that line, in the expense, you see $1.4 million for securing future water. If you'll recall, $750,000 of that you've appropriated as a match for the water conservation grant. So there's still another $700,000 that won't get spent because that's part of your securing future water balance. And then there is a lot of grant and capital expenditures here. So there's a lot of what you see here is spending of that one-time fund balance, but there is still an operational deficit in the water fund, which you are having addressed through the fee study right now. So when we plan the revenues, when you look at the revenues here for this budget, it does include half a year of a fee increase. So if that does not occur, if that is not the council's decision, there may be some recalculating of the route, as we like to say. So, but both the water and the sewer are based somewhat on a budget, a water rate study and adjustment. So similarly for the sewer fund, this one actually went down 1.1 million, and that's in part because there was a grant budgeted for $750,000 for a citywide sewer study that didn't materialize last year. And so that's just part of the reason that that budget has dropped. There is also a decrease in the fund balance carry forward because we actually used some of it as planned last year. Several projects were completed: the oxidation ditch clean out, the clarifier rehab, the manhole improvement project. So as you get things done, your fund balance carry forward does get used up. And this is where you have that $600,000 in fund balance use for the jetter truck, so that we don't have to keep leasing trucks. Like the water fund, the operational costs do need to be addressed by the fee study. And this revenue budget does include 6 months of a new rate increase. Fund one, the library fund is supported by the general fund transfer of $198,436. That's part of those eliminations that I told you about at the beginning. This does include that $18,000 for completion of the patio, so this is something that we just recently increased from the last council's last council meeting recommendation. And of the operational revenue that you see there of the $136,000, $131,900 is from the Gila County Library funding. So they have one of the more simple budgets. Active adult also is supported by the general fund with the transfer in of about $107,000. This is actually less than last year's because some of their funding increased unexpectedly, and there is a remaining bit of funding from a golf fundraiser that was held a few years ago that I just asked, was like, is there still money left? And they said yes, so we appropriated that for use next year. So we've mitigated a little bit what the general fund will be contributing to that. And here are your WIFA loans. These are the loans from the Water Infrastructure and Finance Authority of Arizona. The 2014 and 2017 WIFA loans are fully received and expended, although payments are still being made on the bond debt for 2005, 2014, and 2017, but that debt is included in the water operational budget. So there's about $706,000 is principal on your WIFA loans in your water operational budget. The new water and wastewater grants will be future applications for $2 million. I did just put up $1.5 million in the budget. Those just don't get spent in the first year that they're applied for, certainly. And my understanding is that these won't be applied for until the rate studies are completed and council has the opportunity to evaluate the impact of those rate increases on the operational budgets. Ooh, makes a noise when I do that. And this is a very simple look at the grant fund. We had a big number last year, 21.195 million. We actually dropped that a little to 19 million. This is really what you talk about. This is about capacity. This is if the grants come along, if the appropriations come from the federal government, if the state says they're gonna, write you a check. You just want to have the ability to accept it. Otherwise, it does give you also capacity elsewhere in your budget. So you can always reduce the grant fund and increase another one. I will bring up, and we did this last year, these are the kinds of grants that are out there and that we're looking for. And Paul, do you want to talk about any of these, or?
Let me pull up the version of
copy you can see.
Yeah, so, no, I mean, this is straight out of the majority of our Public Works CIP. You have we have some partner money, the A+ effluent, and the citywide sewer and water master plan sewer assessment. That's about 6, 7, 8.5 million that we hope to get from up to that much on our partners. We got the Army Corps money, Growing Smarter. We have BHP, we have the Brownsfield. I mean, you can see for yourself. Michelson's still in there hanging out. And then Cinema Gallegos Water, we have that additional money coming in. It shows how effective our federal legislative program has been. It takes two things. You have to have the opportunities there, and then the ability to reel them in and land the money. And the opportunity's been there, and timing was impeccable. We were ready to go when this stuff is out there. We were hitting it, and we've done very well. So I think this reflects that. And then some police stuff in there, but we bring in a lot of this big infrastructure stuff, but police and fire are always pecking away to knock down our costs with the bunch of grants they have. They're not as many zeros behind them, but they're very helpful to their budgets, and we appreciate those grants also.
Paul, on the Yuma Bridge, that's a state appropriation, is that still in the state budget, or did they cut that off?
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The good news is they cut about 333 million of WIFA money, but it's not our WIFA money. It's a different bank of WIFA money. But no, the Yuma Bridge and a lot of those rural projects did not make it. But if they hang around for a couple of years, it can come back. So you just never know. And so we park that in there just in case something happens and it is revived somehow. I will tell you, Representative David Cook does a great job of bringing money back to his district, Connie's Bridge, among other things, and then the additions for the additional cost for both Connie's and Cottonwood. So we want to be prepared if somehow the stars align and we hit a home run on the Yuma Bridge.
And the last slide I think that I have is one you can't even see or read, but it's just the Auditor General form. This is what gets published. This shows your budgeted expenditures in the bottom right corner, $66,300,244. I apologize, the agenda item had a rounding error in it. I think your agenda item says 245. We can go down from that tentative to final. So whichever way you want to make the motion, Shelley, you can take care of whatever's appropriate for that. So this is what gets published in the newspaper, and there you see the interfund transfers of $305,000. So with that, Paul already covered that this will get posted for the next 2 weeks, and then the public hearing will be on the 16th, and the final public hearing on the tax levy and adoption of the levy will be on July 30th. And I really have had a great time this year working with the staff members, getting to know a lot of them. We've had a lot of back and forth. They've been really good about asking me, where should I post this? Where do I move it? I still have had, a lot of journal entries that we're doing, trying to sort things out, get them in the right buckets. But that's the technicalities, but we just want you as a city to be able to move forward with your goals.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, it's been a pleasure working with Tina. Tina and myself and Pat Walker will get on these budget calls, and then eventually they eke out so much that they either throw me off or I go off and do something else. But Pat Walker has been following this and looking over this also, because she is the one that is making sure that we're on the straight and level and flying right, as with her vast experience in municipal budgeting.
Any questions?
Yeah, not a question. I'd just like to make a comment to the general public. That these budget seasons and this whole budget process is far from just a rubber stamp. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, from our consultants to our city manager, to all of our department heads, and just having multiple conversations about where the money needs to be spent, and even this mayor and council spending a lot of time going over these numbers and then ultimately coming to a decision. I can't even put it in hours. I would think it would probably be hundreds, maybe a couple hundred hours combined.
It's a lengthy process.
It is.
But we don't have a gigantic budget, but we have a very complex budget.
Right.
We have a lot of different nooks and crannies and funds. We leverage money against other money very creatively, and Pat Walker's always known that we've had, you know, a lot of different elements in there that we make work together, and Tina's jumped in and figured out all those and straightened out, you know, it's amazing your memory for where these funds started and went. But but no, it is making sure that we, you know, use the right money in the right spot to get the right projects. We're doing really good about making sure we carry money forward, so we don't, one of our habits before is making sure that everything got across from the old budget to the new budget. And so lots of meetings in Public Works, is usually that's where that happens. We still have 3 weeks that if anybody sees anything, hopefully this is gonna go back with very minimum changes, unless of course, we look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, we forgot X, Y, or Z, and we'll have to do that. Hopefully we've gotten everything in there. But so we have 3 more weeks to scrutinize it. It can't grow. If there is a change, it's just a change between contingency and whatever it might be, or rearranging within the departments. So Tina would hope for no changes whatsoever, but that ship already sailed. So I'm going for under a half dozen. Okay.
Well, and all the work, and you're right, we don't have a very big budget, but a lot of the things that we're making happen here is due to the hard work from our staff, the grant writers, just going and finding those dollars that are out there, that if you don't go after it, you'll never get it. And so one thing that's certain, it's out there. We just got to be able to find the mechanisms to get it. And I mean, it's from fire grants, from police grants, you know, just everybody that is out there, just turning those the stones over to see what can come of it. And it's just really amazing. And I applaud all of you for that work. You know, I was talking to somebody, another councilman from another town, and you know, we were talking about, you know, being on council is just, you know, you can't do a whole lot unless you're a body, right? As an individual, there's not a lot you can do. But he told me some words of wisdom, and he says, you know, this is the one thing you can do as a council is hire good people. And when you hire good people, that's what really makes your community tick. So hats off to all the staff here, everybody, from city manager all the way to the guy that's picking up or hoeing weeds or whatever it might be. It's just an awesome machine. So thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, I would be remiss to talk about, I think we have one of the strongest relationships with the county right now, and a lot of partnering there. And then I think we have very strong relationships with all our mines, all our partnerships there, and that plays into a lot of this. And the hospital, I mean, we're working good with everyone. Yeah. And that regionalism that started with Mayor Guimeros has really paid dividends on top of everything else.
I do have one question and a comment, but on your third slide where it says taxes on 10,068 on a proposed 25, is that just sales tax revenue, or does that include property tax and all that? Is that just sales tax revenue?
So let me go back up to that slide. So the taxes revenue does include the property tax, includes the $500,000 in property tax,
Okay,
yes.
so sales tax would be about 9.5 million then?
Correct, yes. Okay. Good math. You're hired.
The other thing is, you know, it's for anybody, and we know we got, and I don't know if I can say home rule and what's it called, alternative, what's the name of it? Expenditure limit coming on our ballot. There's multiple layers of protection as our staff and our finance establish and our council establishes this budget. So really, if home rules were to fail, we would be devastated. We could not spend the money that we have. And so I really encourage all our residents to get educated with what the budget process is and what the limits are and the layers of protection as we do this budget. But thanks staff, same Freddie, I echo that, and Tina, thank you very much for all the work.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments, I make a motion to approve the adoption of the City of Globe fiscal year 24-25 tentative budget in the amount not to exceed $66,300,245, which includes $19 million in unfunded grant requests and direction to complete and post the required attorney general forms and approve the public hearing date of July 16, 2024 for the fiscal year 24-25 final budget July 30th, 2024 for the property tax levy.
Second. And Mr. Mayor, members of council, we did want to take that down $1.
Okay, stipulate, take it down $1.
There's some rounding errors in there, and so it,
Alright, so $66,300,244.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Second on that, Chuck?
Yeah.
Thanks, Freddie.
I think everybody seconded.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, for approval of the fiscal year 24-25 tentative budget. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you again. On item 7 is late agenda items. We have A, update on the council on the Upper Canal Creek Connie's Bridge project. Luis.
We waited patiently all night.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm here to talk a little bit about our Connie's Bridge. It's coming along. We are, always trying to get the best product. There has been some delays. I don't know if you might have noticed that the gabions were already in place, and I rejected them because they were not right. So that kind of like puts us a little bit behind. They're starting to, get them built again. With the rain last night, it got flooded, it got a bunch of mud, and they just couldn't continue there. We've been working also on the approach slab on the north side of the bridge. They've been installing the rebar. We're going to be ready to pour. We had to pour it first what they call the sleeper, which is kind of like the support for the approach slab. We've been working on basically redesigning the installation of the lighting because we didn't have a detailed, design for that. It's been on the works for 3 weeks at least. And that was critical before we poured the curb and the sidewalk because we had to decide where the conduit was gonna be running and where it was gonna be coming up from the concrete depending on the configuration of the lighting. We had a meeting this morning and, we had the designer there, we have the electrical engineer, myself, MDC Electric, and we came up with a plan that we think is gonna work. So we're waiting on the designer to give us revised drawings and specs for the material that we're gonna be using. Because MDC wouldn't go to work if they don't have an approved and stamped set of plans. So everything kind of like takes its time. But one thing I want to assure is that I wouldn't sacrifice the quality to push this project to get it done. And I know people is impatient. They've been asking questions, what's going on, what's happening. It's not easy to explain all the, situations that we need to go through in order to get it right. But it's gotta be done the correct way. And now we are a little behind. We were aiming, basically Meridian was aiming to have it ready for the railroad to start the installation of the gates and the lights by August the 8th. But that is gonna be pushed now with all these issues in the way. We're gonna have a meeting tomorrow with Meridian, which is our weekly meeting, and also to ask them for a detailed, schedule, a revised schedule to see, where we're going with this and see what is their intent as far as making more progress. Probably they need to bring more laborers, more workers to have 2 or 3 activities going on at the same time instead of, going one after the other. That takes longer. So we're gonna have that conversation tomorrow and see, what we can, get from them. But what you see is something that is well built. It's taking time, but we need to solve both those issues that we encounter to make sure that our bridge is safe and durable.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Luis, myself, and John met today. We talked about a lot of these things going on. I intend to attend that meeting tomorrow. I asked Luis, it's like, can we give a date? And he is not able to do that. Luis and I are going to ask the contractor to put in, to come up with a timeline and bring that back to council at the next meeting on July 9th. Ask them to present and explain where they're at and what they believe what their time frame will be. I intend to work backwards. I must say that a couple of things. This is not the railroads holding this up at this point. I don't believe that you won't find that the problem. Right now, it's a series of this has to happen before this, and we need to make sure that the turnaround from each thing happening is happening on a tighter schedule. I think they can throw some more resources at it and make sure that they don't put themselves back into a liquid damages condition. And I'm going to encourage them to do that, and we'll see what we come back with and have them come and ask them to give a date for when it will be completed.
Mr. Mayor?
Mike, you have a question?
Luis, how did the bridge hold up with this last rain?
Still there?
Did anything get compromised?
No, the only issue that we had is, as I said, that, with the creek running, a lot of mud came into, the area where they were installing those gabions, and now they're filled with mud, so they're gonna have to go back and clean it again, and so they can keep coming up. But, other than that, the bridge is fine.
Yeah, they did a pretty bad job on the gabions.
Yeah, and that's why I rejected them, and I had them tore them apart and redo them.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I told Luis, it's like, if he wasn't keeping such a good eye on them, this,
And then again, we're not gonna let them get away with anything, in lieu of showing progress and making this, kind of like move really fast. I'm sorry, but I'd rather have them, go back and redo things, even if it takes another couple of weeks, than having a product that I'm not satisfied with and the people is not gonna be happy with. And those gabions need to be built in the right way, otherwise, with a big rain event, probably they'll kind of sink, settle, and come down, and, we really don't want that. So that's why, we're redoing that.
Mariano?
Mr. Mayor, the tour that we took a couple months ago answered a lot of questions for me. And looking at all of the forms and settings and support that had to be in place to do the final pour, answered a lot of questions for me. The rest are details with Mother Nature, and that's all we can do is react to that. The gabion baskets, you have to be good at doing that, and you do have to have the right equipment to mold it and then place it. And I've seen many good construction projects like that across the state, but I'm satisfied with the tour where they're headed. The rest is Mother Nature. I've received a few comments, I've seen a few comments. Water runs when it rains. We don't control that. So the reality is, we're at Mother Nature's mercy until we get it up and running. And we still have some deliverables to do, and I get that as well. So I've always said I'm a patient man when it comes to construction, because you have to be. And that's where we're at right now. So continue on that journey then. Thank you, sir.
Fernando?
So personally, I would rather see the job be done a year from now and be done correctly than not done right at all. The one thing that makes me a little nervous is that it seems like they've had to redo quite a few things. And I don't remember us requiring them to have a performance bond. And so that makes me nervous that a company could go out of business and then we're stuck with what's not done. And I know that that's a tough call, because if you add a performance bond, you're probably adding 25-30% to the cost?
I don't think it's that much, but all our projects have a performance bond.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
This one has a performance bond on it?
Correct, this one has a performance bond, right?
I'll have to go back to the contract because I know there's a bond for the project in general, you know.
Because we talked about, well, we're getting into a conversation that may be better for, if need be, in each session. The contract and things. I will tell you, it also has, like say, liquid damages if it's extended over time, and if they bypass the railroads are the last piece to go in. If they're still working on it after the railroads are done, then it kicks back into some time penalties. But it is a set cap, whether it takes them 3 more days or 3 more weeks. It doesn't cost us anything unless we make a change. But if they need to fix something, that is not a change order for us. That is not a cost for us. It is something that they will cover. And so when people think that see that it's going so long, the price has not significantly gone up, other than things that we had control over. Yeah. But Mr. Mayor, I think you had asked about, and I think it's a good idea. Every 2 weeks we'll have an update. We'll call it Luis Job Security.
Have Marie in here.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any questions.
Luis losing sleep, I think.
I don't have any questions, Luis. I just want to thank you. The city's lucky to have a person like you that doesn't take quality over, making sure it's done professionally.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
that's basically my goal. As he said, if it takes a little longer, but do it right. I will have a redo, anything that is out of specs or visually not appealing, or I'm on top of everything, and so if they're not able to do the electrical connections right, they're gonna have to redo them. That's.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to add to that. Thank you, Luis, and any staff that is there putting the time in to making sure that at the end of the day we have a quality project. There's a lot of chatter out there. We see it on Facebook. We hear it in the streets. But at the end of the day, all we're after is that we get the top-notch professional bridge that we wanted in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's not hindering any traffic. We're lucky. We still have the other bridge that they're using. So.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I just got a quick text from Jessica in Public Works. Says, yes, they do have a performance bond.
There you go, Luis.
She's got your back. Got my back.
Good. Okay.
Thank you, Luis.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We go to our second call to the public. Do we have anybody online?
We have 6 people watching. I think they're all staff.
6, that's it.
at least on the Zoom, or on the YouTube. Let me check the mail, real quick. Nope. Nope, I don't see anything on, and nothing on the phone? No.
Okay. Scheduling the meetings?
Just the schedule you saw with on the 16th, we're scheduling to have July, and that's in my, it's in both of these.
16th at 6.
July 16th,
Yeah, July 16th,
final.
that'll be the final adoption. And then the 30th, the 16th will be a nighttime meeting, it's an off Tuesday.
You have a 2:30 meeting too?
There's another one after.
Yeah, that's the 30th, because that's election day.
Yeah.
So you can have a quick meeting and go off and vote.
Quick. Sure.
So.
Yeah.
But those would be the two meetings I would point out. The fact is that, because of the 3-week span, we will, set a meeting for Tuesday, July 16th at 6 p.m. Just for the final budget adoption and anything else that is pressing, but I think we'll be okay. And then the, adoption of the levy on the 30th.
Can, just comment on, briefly on the bed tax meeting, just to let the rest of the council know that we are moving forward. It has been going forward positive. We've had good conversation, built a relationship. We did our counter offer and we're waiting, you know. I think it's not gonna delay us from moving into the budget with the new amounts, but it's just contracts and discussion, but it's going very well, I think. Future agenda items? Anybody have any?
We had the Boys and Girls Club update, and then we'll have ongoing updates on the Connie's Bridge until it's completed.
Okay. Anybody else? Motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Motion second, go each session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for